My idea is for my son to marry her. Can you have kids? That's why I wasn't keen on him marrying someone older like you, my mother-in-law said with a smile. Beside her sat a younger woman, and my husband, the most important person, remained silent next to her. I'm so tired of dealing with his family. I stormed out in anger, but quickly wished I hadn't and wanted to make things right. I feel really bad about marrying into this family. My name is Olivia, and I'm 38 years old. I met my husband, Sam, who was 8 years younger, through a friend. I was unsure about dating him because of the age gap, but he said, "Age doesn't matter. I love you, Olivia." And we started dating, then got married. About 6 months into our relationship, he decided it was time for me to meet his parents because we were thinking about getting married. His mom didn't like the idea because of our age difference. She said to Sam in front of me, "I thought you'd bring home a young, pretty bride when you talked about introducing the woman you might marry." Oh dear, Olivia is 38. Sam, I mean no offense, but think about it again. Younger women are better. His dad stepped in and said, "If Sam thinks it's right, then it's right, isn't it? Sorry for my wife's rude comments, Olivia." After that, they agreed to our marriage. My father-in-law was someone who would calm down my mother-in-law's mean words, seeming like he didn't like arguments. But after we got married, he often ignored things that were wrong, which was disappointing. Sam's family was famous for owning a lot of land in our small town, and my mother-in-law bragged about it a lot. Even though she wasn't actually related by blood, she married into the family, just like me. This family is wealthy, and Sam, as their favorite, has a charming personality that's almost like a dream. The guy I dated before Sam was really careful with money, which was hard, so I like how Sam is generous and relaxed about it. Even though my mother-in-law reluctantly accepted our marriage after my father-in-law scolded her, she doesn't seem happy about it. She keeps telling me how a good wife should act, which is annoying. She's influential among the local women and is proud of leading the Women's Association and being popular. She insisted I meet the association members on a weekday to make a good impression on them. She introduced me with a proud smile, but some of them whispered, "You'll face challenges too," suggesting she wasn't as popular as she claimed. "Oh, and I was also advised to have a fertility checkup," she added. I felt a bit uneasy that it was my mother-in-law, not Sam, who suggested it, but I was curious too, so I agreed. The exams weren't pleasant, but I wished there was a way to make them easier. Sitting in that examination chair felt like torture. Despite the discomfort, the results of my checkup were good, and I felt relieved when the doctor said, "You're healthy." Sam seemed worried, but he relaxed when I told him the news. I shared the results with my mother-in-law, hoping we could now enjoy our marriage without worries. Then she said, "Great, you've cleared the first hurdle." First hurdle? What does she mean by that? I thought she'd be happier. Was she hoping for a bad result? I was unsure how to react when my mother-in-law made an unexpected suggestion. "Once you're married, let's buy a duplex and live together. You'll need to chip in for the down payment and mortgage. You work in administration, right? Your salary might not be high, but you should manage considering your age and experience. I'll cover the rest of the costs for the duplex." I was taken aback by this sudden proposal. I glanced at my husband beside me, but he remained silent. "Please help me out." "Well, about living together, Sam hasn't mentioned anything to me," I replied. Besides feeling insulted about my job being belittled, I was more concerned about the duplex and living arrangements. "You haven't heard?" "Oh, Sam probably thought it was understood. That's not good. We always planned that when Sam got married, we'd all live together." I felt a shiver run down my spine. Was she implying she influenced Sam into this idea through repetition? "Yes, that's what I had in mind," she confirmed. "What? I never heard about this. Why are you agreeing so easily?" "I'm sorry, but I didn't know about this plan, and I can't make a decision without discussing it with Sam. So can we hold off on this for now?" With that, I left my in-laws' house. Later, when I asked Sam about it, he explained that he had planned to build a duplex on his parents' land after we got married and live with them. I was upset that he hadn't mentioned this to me earlier, but he just said, "Sorry, I forgot." Looking back, I realized I should have reconsidered marrying him. At that time, Sam seemed kind and attractive, and I was worried that at my age, I wouldn't find someone else if I let him go. I regret now that I was charmed by his apology and didn't think more clearly. It seems I got caught up in the idea of marriage and didn't see things clearly. So I ended up agreeing to build the duplex my mother-in-law wanted, and I ended up paying for half of the down payment and mortgage. 6 months after we got married, I found out I was pregnant. To be safe, I didn't tell my in-laws until things seemed stable. I was worried something might go wrong. Once everything was okay, I told them the good news. They were thrilled and started talking about baby names right away. They were hoping for a boy, but we didn't know the gender yet, so it's still a surprise. There's some pressure, but it feels good to make them happy. They suggested I quit my job for safety, but since I help out with my family's business, I have a flexible role. I chose to keep working as long as I felt okay. My pregnancy was going well, and I began to feel the baby moving inside me, a moment filled with both mystery and joy. I'm grateful for the experience of being a woman and feeling this happiness. Every time I go for a checkup, my husband Sam and my in-laws eagerly await news of the baby's progress, and I'm excitedly anticipating the birth. I believe having this child will strengthen my relationship with my mother-in-law. One day, amidst what seemed like a bright and ordinary day, I noticed that the baby's movements were becoming weaker. An indescribable anxiety engulfed me, and I rushed to the hospital. The doctors delivered devastating news. Something was wrong with the baby. How? Why? I was living my life normally. What had I done wrong? Fears of the unknown gripped me as I was admitted to the hospital immediately. Despite the doctor's efforts, my child's journey ended too soon. Just a few more months, and I could have held my baby. Why did it happen so suddenly? It felt like just yesterday when the baby was lively inside me. Was it my fault? As tears streamed down my face, my husband's words cut through the grief. How long will you cry? It's done now, isn't it? Crying won't bring the baby back. Stop crying. I was stunned. What was he saying? Our child had just passed away. Although taken aback by this unfamiliar coldness from Sam, my shattered state of mind left me unable to respond. The day I was discharged from the hospital arrived, but Sam didn't come to pick me up. Putting on a brave face, I reassured the concerned nurses that I'd manage fine on my own. Arriving home in a taxi, I was met by Sam, my mother-in-law, and a stranger. Welcome back. It's unfortunate, isn't it? My mother-in-law said with an odd smile. Yes, I replied, taking a seat on the living room couch as directed. The seating arrangement felt strange, with my mother-in-law and the stranger sitting across from me, and Sam beside them, showing no signs of comfort or eye contact. Then my mother-in-law spoke up. We've discussed this with Sam. Since you can't have children anymore, we don't need a daughter-in-law who can't provide in here, so we've arranged for this girl to marry Sam. I was stunned by her words. As I struggled to come to terms with the loss of the baby, tears brimmed in my eyes. But I fought back, knowing that giving in to tears would mean admitting defeat. Unable to lift my gaze, I kept my head bowed. Despite my despair, my mother-in-law pressed on mercilessly. Well, if you're suggesting you'll support the family financially instead of having children, we might consider letting you stay. But can you really provide for us if they leave you behind? I was bewildered by their conversation. Instinctively, I looked to my husband for support, but he avoided my eyes. Beside him, a woman who looked triumphant stared back at me. I recognized her as Sam's childhood friend, introduced to me at our wedding. Seeing my husband's reluctance to meet my gaze, I realized he wasn't on my side. A chilling realization washed over me, sharpening my senses. While I was in the hospital, it seems they made their plans. They want to kick me out, the woman who can't have children, and bring in a younger wife to have in here. If I stay, I'll only suffer more. There's nothing for me here anymore. Finally understanding this clearly, I said to Sam, I get it. Let's divorce. Please be happy with your new wife. And so I left the house and went back to my family home. My parents were surprised but welcomed me warmly. They knew about my miscarriage and were outraged by the cruelty I faced so soon after leaving the hospital. It was a relief to feel their love after so long, and I ended up crying a lot that day. Exhausted from crying, I fell asleep. But the next day, my mother-in-law and husband, who had treated me so cruelly, showed up at my family home. At first, my mother answered the door, but when she realized who it was, she refused to talk to them. Then they started ringing the doorbell nonstop, shouting, "We take back the divorce. Come back now." In truth, my family owns a barbecue restaurant, a well-known spot that serves a globally recognized brand of beer. Many famous people, including celebrities and athletes, dine there. However, my husband's family comes from an old and respected background. They had a negative opinion of my family because of our restaurant business. They held on to old-fashioned beliefs that restaurants were shady and that our family background was lacking. We had invited them to dine with us before the wedding, but they declined, citing concerns about beef and preferring to eat at specific places. During the pre-wedding discussions, they indirectly criticized my family, making remarks like, "Oh, you're in the restaurant business, aren't you? That's from your parents' era, isn't it? Oh, I understand. Dealing with beef, huh?" Reputable families usually avoid such ventures. It hurt to see my parents, who had worked hard to raise me, being belittled in this way. My parents brushed it off with a chuckle, saying, "Some people just think that way." On the day I left after the divorce, my husband and mother-in-law happened to catch a TV feature about our restaurant. Until then, they hadn't shown any interest and had looked down on my family. But when they learned that the restaurant was described as running its own farm, producing top-quality beef, and enjoying immense popularity with meat exported worldwide, their attitude changed. Suddenly, they were panicking and came rushing to me, pleading for my return. They tried to cozy up to me, saying, "If we'd known you were so successful, we wouldn't have talked about divorce. We're sorry for yesterday. We weren't thinking straight. Please come back." It made me feel sick to my stomach how quickly they changed their tune. After all the discussions about children and heirs, was it really just about money in the end? My husband, Sam, and his family never bothered to inquire about my job in detail, so I had casually mentioned that I worked in office administration for my family's business, leading them to believe I was a low-paid, unimportant employee. It seems they assumed that if they asked me to contribute to the house's down payment and mortgage, I'd give up on the marriage. The truth is, I actually oversee the meat export division of my parents' company, earning a substantial income for an office worker. Thankfully, I had saved up a good amount of money due to marrying later in life, which allowed me to meet their financial demands. I'm also a major shareholder in the company and aspire to take over my father's position to further expand the business. They never showed any interest or asked me about this until they saw it on TV, which suddenly changed their attitude towards me. Despite incessantly talking about wanting children, it seems money was their primary concern all along. I'm utterly disappointed by their superficiality. After silently observing the situation, my father finally lost his temper and kicked Sam and his parents out. "Thank you, Dad. You saved me," I said gratefully. Still simmering with anger, my father began drinking and cursing at them. He wanted me to explain everything that happened before the marriage, holding nothing back, believing I shouldn't handle this alone. My father immediately contacted a lawyer he knew, seeking damages for my unjust eviction. We also demanded reimbursement for the housing funds I provided during our time living together. The claim was acknowledged, and I was awarded a refund for the expenses I covered. However, Sam alone couldn't repay the loan I had taken out, so they had to sell their family home. Despite being a luxurious house on rural property, it still had a substantial mortgage remaining even after the sale. Moreover, the house was filled with Sam's mother's eccentricities, making finding a buyer willing to accept it as is difficult, which could delay the sale. Luckily, they were able to sell some of their separately owned land, allowing me to recoup my money first, which was a relief. At this point, I was grateful to have married into a landlord's family. Sam and his parents were forced to leave their beloved two-family home and now seemed to be struggling in a rented apartment, trying to repay their loan. Oh, and as for the woman who was considering marrying Sam, she was only interested because she thought she'd live in a big house and that his family was wealthy. But as soon as she found out they were going to lose the house and still be in debt, she disappeared. I think it was smart of her to run away because if she had married him, she might have been pressured to have a child and maybe even forced to work because of her young age. This area is still pretty rural, so news spreads quickly. Gossip flies around, especially when it involves a well-known family like Sam's. People are talking, saying things like they treated her horribly and drove her away. They used to flaunt their big house, but now they're in debt and living in an apartment. Both the wife and the potential new wife have left them. Their family line might end with this generation. It's surprising how accurate the rumors are and makes you wonder who's been watching all this unfold. The power of a rural network is something else. It seems like my controlling mother-in-law, who used to act like she owned the place, is now sneaking around even when she's just out shopping, worried about what people will say. My parents reminded me, we warned you about marrying into a family that would demand pregnancy tests before marriage, didn't we? And brushed off the situation. They tried to console me in their own way, saying, Olivia just rushed into marriage a bit. Don't worry about it. It's okay if you stay home for now. They show their care in their own unique way. Despite the challenges we faced, like being evicted and going to court, I can sense their happiness at having their daughter back home. I'm grateful for their warmth and support. It feels like I've woken up from a bad dream about my married life, and now I'm free. Although I have a divorce behind me, I'm still in my 30s and haven't given up on marriage. Once things settle down, I plan to focus on finding a new partner. But for now, maybe I should dedicate more time to doing good things for my parents.
There had been plenty of time until today, but I hadn't been able to get in touch with my son, Brian, or his wife, Ashley, and we couldn't coordinate where to meet. This had never happened before, so I was quite worried, but since they both have jobs, I couldn't push them too hard. In the end, I left home alone. Do you know where your mom and dad are? I've been trying to reach them, but I can't get through.
I don't know either. They were home this morning, though.
I see. But now that I'm here, do you feel a little better?
Yeah. I'm happier to see you than them.
That's good. But as soon as I said it, I hesitated. Wait, is that really something to be glad about? I pushed down the uneasy feeling rising inside me and asked, trying to keep my voice steady, why do you feel that way?
Because I don't think Mom and Dad really like me.
While making soup, I find myself reflecting on life. Naturally, the first thing that comes to mind is my husband. He passed away 6 years ago from a sudden heart attack, with no warning at all. I, Sarah, lost the partner I had spent more than half my life with. My husband and I have a son, Brian. He's about to turn 30, a full-grown man now. When he was young, I had my hands full with him, but it's been a long time since those days. The last time he really gave me trouble was more than 10 years ago, when he was about to graduate from college and hit a roadblock in his job search. He was a complete wreck during that time. He would lash out at things without a second thought, sometimes raise his voice at my husband and me, and in the end, he was on the verge of going down the wrong path. But we managed to stop it just in time. My cousin, Matthew, who held a decent position at a company, pulled some strings and helped Brian land a job through a connection. After that, it was like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders, and he gradually went back to being himself. My husband and I, having watched the whole thing unfold, both felt an immense sense of relief. I can still remember that feeling vividly. Before long, Brian fell in love with a woman named Ashley at work, and they eventually got married. But since the details of how that happened don't have much to do with my own life, I'll skip ahead a bit. 7 years ago, my beloved granddaughter Lily was born. I was overjoyed when she came into the world. My husband was still alive back then, so the two of us celebrated together, even more than the parents themselves. It breaks my heart that he didn't get to watch Lily grow up, but at least he got to see her face, and I want to believe that brought him some happiness. And now here I am, making a meal for Lily in my kitchen.
Grandma, what are you making today?
I'm making your favorite soup, Lily. It's almost ready. Do you want to help?
Yeah, okay, I'd love to.
Lily is such a sweet, well-mannered child. She never throws tantrums or demands things, and she's always happy to chat or help with even the simplest tasks. Of course, I don't expect a 7-year-old to fully understand the subtle emotions of others, but I can tell she has that ability deep down. On top of that, Lily is especially attached to me. I don't know much about how other grandparents and grandchildren interact, but our bond feels closer to that of a parent and child, rather than just grandmother and granddaughter. Then again, since I never had a daughter, I suppose that's a question without an answer for me.
It's done.
Lily puffed out her chest proudly, and I couldn't help but find her absolutely adorable. Now, I truly understand what people mean when they say they love someone so much it wouldn't hurt even if they were hit in the eye with them. Thank you. I'll take care of the rest, so you go ahead and sit down and wait.
Okay.
As I watched Lily take a bite of her soup after letting it cool a little, I realized mine had already gone cold. What did Mom and Dad say about where they were going today? Brian and Ashley go out once or twice a month for some time alone as a couple, leaving Lily with me. No matter what others might think, I have absolutely no objection to it. I believe parents need at least a little time to take a break from the daily demands of raising a child. But if I'm being honest, that's only part of it. More than anything, sharing these meals with Lily has become my greatest joy in life. As for Lily, she's as well-mannered as ever. In fact, she once told me that, just like me, she enjoys this time together. I often hug her tightly, and each time, it feels just a little more special.
They said they're going to their usual restaurant.
Lily answered after licking her spoon clean. Her bowl was completely empty.
Thanks for the meal. It was delicious.
I'm glad you liked it. With that, she picked up her empty bowl, carried it to the kitchen, and set it in the sink with some water. The fact that she does all this on her own must be a sign of good upbringing. Thinking about how much trouble Brian was as a child, I feel relieved to see that he's turned into a responsible parent. If this is their way of taking a break, then I'm more than happy to spend my time like this.
Oh, Grandma,
What is it?
I got a letter from school today about field day. Here, look. Will you come?
It was still about 2 weeks away, but I suddenly realized the season had already come around again. This would be Lily's first field day since starting elementary school, and skipping it wasn't even an option. Of course, I'll be there.
Yay!
Lily jumped up and spun around in excitement. To think she could be this happy over such a simple answer, how pure and innocent she is. Once again, my heart felt warm, like a tiny match had been struck inside me. The next 2 weeks passed in the blink of an eye, and the day of the field day finally arrived. There had been plenty of time until today, but I hadn't been able to get in touch with my son, Brian, or his wife, Ashley, and we couldn't coordinate where to meet. This had never happened before, so I was quite worried, but since they both have jobs, I couldn't push them too hard. In the end, I left home alone. The elementary school was packed with people. Trying to find just 2 people in this crowd was going to be nearly impossible. I fumbled with my smartphone, which I still wasn't used to, trying to call them again, but there was still no answer. That made me worry about something else, whether Lily was there or not. Pushing my way through the crowd, I made my way toward the spot Lily had told me about. When I finally reached the section where the first graders were sitting around the center of the field, I spotted a familiar face. Lily. I strained my aging voice, trying my best to call out to Lily and get her attention. After several attempts, she finally responded. She noticed me at last and turned her head in my direction.
Grandma.
Lily ran straight toward me. In the next moment, for some reason, she burst into tears. It wasn't that crying itself was a bad thing, but it was so unlike her to break down in front of so many people. She was always calm, well-mannered, and more perceptive than most kids her age. I had never seen her this upset before. It was at this moment that I finally realized something was wrong. Lily, what's wrong? It's okay, I'm here. Just like I always had, I gently wrapped my arms around her. It had been a long time since it had to comfort a crying child, but the years of experience it gained weren't for nothing. Holding her close, I walked with her toward the far edge of the field. Thankfully, or maybe unfortunately, the place was so crowded that nobody paid much attention to one crying child. The whole area was buzzing with noise and excitement. How are you feeling now? Are you okay?
Yeah.
Lily sniffled as she answered. Good. I just have a quick question. Do you mind?
It's about Mom and Dad, isn't it?
As sharp as ever. No, this must be the reason why. That's right. Do you know where they are? I've been trying to reach them, but I can't get through.
I don't know either. They were home this morning, though.
I see. But now that I'm here, do you feel a little better?
Yeah. I'm happier to see you than them.
That's good. But as soon as I said it, I hesitated. Wait, is that really something to be glad about? I pushed down the uneasy feeling rising inside me and asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Why do you feel that way?
Because I don't think Mom and Dad really like me.
Before I could even process those words, my phone rang.
Hello? Mom?
Despite everything that had happened, and despite the fact that he had left Lily alone, Brian's voice sounded completely normal. Where are you right now? You left Lily all by herself. What the hell are you thinking?
Sorry. The thing is, today's our anniversary. So Ashley and I are in Spain. We won't be back for a week. So can you watch Lily until then?
He said it so casually, without a shred of guilt. I couldn't even comprehend what he was saying at first. And when I finally did, shock hit me before anger could, followed closely by disappointment. Then the anger came. Are you serious right now? You didn't even leave her lunch or anything? But the call had already been disconnected. The dull beep of the ended call rang in my ears, but I barely registered it.
Grandma.
I swallowed the fury rising inside me and turned back to Lily. It's okay, I'm here. I wasn't sure who that "it's okay" was really meant for, but maybe it was for myself. Lily, you'll be staying at my house for a while. Also, I'm going to grab us some lunch, so be a good girl and wait for me, okay?
Okay, but are you sure?
Of course. Your mom and dad had some last-minute work come up.
It always happens. That's why I'm alone every night.
What? After picking up a slightly fancier lunch at the nearest grocery store, I sat down at the edge of the parent seating area. Brian's words over the phone and what Lily had just told me weighed heavily on my mind. Maybe I should have felt relieved that nothing bad had happened to the two of them, but I just couldn't bring myself to feel that way. Of course, there's no excuse for both parents skipping their own daughter Lily's field day. And the fact that they were off on an anniversary trip abroad made it impossible to keep my anger in check. On top of that, when Lily said she was always alone at night, I instinctively lied and told her they had urgent work. But in reality, this was probably how things always were. Luckily, I thought of a way to find out for sure. Hello, Matthew.
Sarah, this is Rare. What's up?
Actually, I need a favor. Would you mind? Without much preamble, I briefly explained what had just happened. So, that's the situation. I need to know what's going on with Brian and Ashley at work.
That's unbelievable. What a terrible situation. I don't know much about Brian at work since we're in different departments. But if you give me some time, I can look into it for you.
Really? Thank you. That'd be a huge help. I'm just so worried about Lily.
I figured. Don't worry. I'll take care of it. You just focus on looking after her.
He was incredibly reassuring. I had made the right call by reaching out to him. After hanging up, I noticed Lily running toward me from a distance. She seemed to have regained some energy, which put me at ease, if only a little. I got us lunch. Let's eat together. After field day ended, I took Lily back home with me. But since she didn't have any extra clothes or other necessities, I needed to go to Brian and Ashley's house to pick them up. By this point, I had organized my thoughts, and my anger had reached its peak. I couldn't believe they were capable of doing something like this. At the same time, my anger was directed more at myself than at them. It was a deep sense of disappointment and regret that I had noticed the signs before things reached this point. That's why I was planning to go not only to gather Lily's things, but also to find any clues I could. Of course, it wasn't trespassing or anything like that. I had a spare key, and they had entrusted me with Lily's care, so I had every right to be there. I had wanted to leave Lily at home and search for evidence thoroughly, but I realized that wouldn't be good for her. In the end, I decided to take her with me. Right now, she shouldn't be left alone. Okay, Lily, let's go to your house and grab some clothes.
Yeah,
She looked genuinely happy. Brian and Ashley's house was about a 20-minute drive from my home, located in a residential area just off the main road. I unlocked the front door with the spare key, and despite it still being early evening, the house was pitch black, making it almost impossible to see. It seemed they had truly planned to be away for a full week, closing all the blinds before leaving. No matter how their anniversary happened to coincide with Lily's field day, there was absolutely no excuse for abandoning her like this. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was another truth hidden beneath the surface. Lily, go to your room and get your things ready. I'll wait downstairs.
okay. A sleepover at Grandma's.
In the meantime, I decided to start searching for evidence in the living room. As I took my first step, I stepped on something. Ouch! It wasn't sharp, but it was hard and small. The room was too dark to see what it was, and just as I bent down to check, my phone rang again. I reached out for whatever I had stepped on while glancing at the screen. It was Matthew.
Hello? Is this a good time?
Yes, I'm fine. Did you find out anything? I answered, trying to ignore the pain in my foot. Hopefully, it hadn't come through in my voice.
Yeah. Though I'm not sure how useful this is, I figured I should tell you anyway. It seems that Brian and Ashley have a terrible work ethic. Constant tardiness and unapproved absences are the norm, but they hardly ever work overtime.
I was honestly shocked.
So if they're coming home late, they're probably just wandering around somewhere. I can't believe they leave little Lily alone until late at night.
The sheer level of stupidity was beyond anything I had imagined, leaving me at a loss for words.
This is just my guess, but the more you dig, the more dirt you're probably going to find. You might want to brace yourself.
Meanwhile, the object I had picked up was a casino chip.
Hello, Sarah? Are you okay?
I might not be. Look into it a little more. I'm going to do some digging on my end too. I had seen these on TV before, but this was the first time I had ever held one in real life. I knew exactly what this ordinary, unremarkable chip was. Near where the chips were scattered, there was a card that looked like a membership pass with visit dates recorded on it. They had been going about twice a month, and the dates matched perfectly. It seemed that they were addicted to gambling. And then there were the envelopes stacked on the dining table, all bearing the names of what looked like loan companies. The harsh reality these things pointed to was too overwhelming and raw to ignore. At the same time, an intense fear gripped me. A world I had thought had nothing to do with me was now unfolding right in front of my eyes. It was dark, heavy, and pressing down on me like a weight I couldn't escape. The night before Brian and Ashley were set to return, I got another call from Matthew.
I found something big.
He sounded shaken, and even though I hadn't seen him in years, I could clearly picture his expression.
Turns out they've been stealing from their company. I can't believe the mess we've been dealing with for years has turned into something this massive.
I had already considered this as part of the worst case scenario, so while I felt disappointed, I wasn't surprised. If anything, I gained a sense of certainty. I had been transferring money each month for Lily's future, but I knew now that it was long gone. Not only were they unsatisfied with their own earnings, but they had gone so far as to steal from others and even their workplace just to pour everything into gambling. Lily's well-being meant nothing to them. Thinking back, if the trip to Spain had really happened, they had probably hit a big win and spent it all on luxury instead of paying off debts. My heart burned with anger. Ultimately, my anger was not so much at Brian and Ashley, but at myself for not realizing the truth sooner and for not saving Lily when I still had the chance. If only I had picked up on something. If I had stopped them somehow. I knew it was too late for regrets, and that only made my anger grow stronger. Matthew, I have one last favor to ask.
At this point, I'm in all the way. Besides, the embezzlement issue affects us too.
I want both of them fired immediately.
Sarah, are you serious?
Yes, I've had enough. People who abandon their own child deserve consequences. And even if they hadn't, they still committed a crime. This is just the natural outcome.
Well, you're not wrong. Got it. I'll handle it on my end. I'll call you if there's any progress.
Thank you. The next day, Matthew called again.
Sarah, it's done. Once we started digging, the evidence kept piling up. It was an open and shut case.
Justice had been served. The day after Brian and Ashley returned from their trip, they finally contacted me. I had been waiting for their call. The fact that they hadn't even planned to pick up Lily on the day they got back was shocking.
Mom, what the hell happened?
I don't think I need to explain anything. This is just the result of your own actions.
No way. But firing us out of nowhere? That's insane.
Did you really think I knew nothing?
What?
When I went to get Lily's things, I found out everything. That you're addicted to gambling, that you've been taking out loans to cover your losses, that you've been ignoring debt collection notices. I'm sure you even spent the savings I had put aside for Lily, didn't you?
No. That's a misunderstanding.
Even if that were true, then tell me, what did you do with the company money you stole? You weren't fired because of gambling. You were fired because you were caught embezzling. Matthew investigated everything. After hearing all that, Brian had no choice but to stay silent. He didn't say a word for a while. Everything I had just listed wasn't speculation, a bluff, or a threat. It was simply the truth. But the more important part starts now. So, what are you going to do from here?
What do you mean? Help me. We're family.
Hearing those words, I couldn't help but laugh, even as anger swirled inside me. You abandoned Lily, and now you want to talk about family. How convenient. I already told you. This is the result of your own actions. I have no obligation to help you.
Wait. What about Lily?
The fact that he was only thinking of her now made my anger flare even more. I had already planned to take care of Lily myself, but I made sure to add one more thing. Lily has nothing to do with this. That's why I'm going to raise her. You two have no right to.
Wait. Please. You could talk to Matthew. If you ask him, maybe he'll listen.
Were you even listening? This whole thing was uncovered because I asked Matthew to investigate. Why would I go back and convince him otherwise? Brian's mind clearly wasn't working properly anymore. And even now, all he cared about was saving himself. There was no hope for him. As Brian grew more frantic over the phone, I no longer felt any anger. The only thing left inside me was disappointment. Lily, come here for a moment. I need to talk to you about something important.
What is it?
From today on, you'll be living with me. Your mom and dad are busy with work, so they don't have much time to be with you. And I worry about you. Do you mind staying with me? Lily paused to think. Being as sharp as she was, I knew she had her own thoughts about everything that had happened. Then she looked up and smiled brightly.
Not at all. I love you, Grandma.
That pure, innocent smile was the only thing that saved me. As I made soup, I found myself lost in thought again. Lily loved soup, so at least once a week, I would stand by the stove, carefully simmering the ingredients. I had no idea what had happened to Brian and Ashley after that. I had practically cut ties and left my home behind, but they were still my son and his wife. It would be a lie to say I didn't think about them at all. Whether they were sitting behind bars for embezzlement, running from debt collectors, or barely scraping by somewhere, there was no good outcome for them. But it wasn't unfair. If anything, it was exactly what they deserved. Never in my life had I imagined that, at this stage, I would be caught in such a mess. As a parent, I could only feel ashamed.
Grandma, I'm home. Oh, is tonight's dinner soup?
Hi, Lily. Yes, it's your favorite soup, Lily.
Yay! I can't wait for dinner.
Now, go wash your hands first.
Okay.
Lily hadn't changed at all. At least, that's how she looked to me. I didn't know how much he truly understood. I had told her a small lie, but maybe she had already seen through it. Still, no matter how perceptive she was compared to other kids her age, she was still a child. All I could do now was hope that she would never have to learn the cruel truth.
I washed my hands.
Did you gargle too?
Yes. I want to help.
Thank you. The truth was, I was so happy that Lily had come to live with me. Being alone was lonelier than I had imagined, and I had always looked forward to her visits. But now, living together under the same roof, my heart felt full again. After everything that happened, we moved to a new place, knowing they might come looking for help. But I have no regrets about that decision now. At this stage in my life, nothing made me happier than seeing my granddaughter smile up close. Lily, can I ask you something?
What is it?
She tilted her head slightly, her big eyes shining with curiosity. She was still so pure. Do you ever feel lonely or sad being away from your mom and dad? Lily took her time before answering.
I do feel lonely, but being alone is even lonelier. So I'm really happy I get to be with you all the time.
I see. I couldn't find any words to say back. So instead, I just held her tightly in my arms.
Long time no see, Sarah.
I was taken aback. After 13 years, I unexpectedly ran into my ex-husband, Jack, who had eloped with my younger sister, Julia. It happened in the grocery store's vegetable section, where I had come to shop. Standing beside me was my daughter, Zoe. Since she didn't remember Jack as her father, she looked at both of us with a puzzled expression. I tried to ignore him and walk away.
Wait, just hear me out.
Jack grabbed my wrist as I tried to leave, refusing to let go. Zoe kept staring at me with a curious look while Jack, still holding my wrist, started explaining why he had returned to town. To put it simply, he ran out of money. That was the whole pathetic reason he came back to beg his ex-wife, me, for help. Just let go of me.
You're still living with that old senile man, aren't you? I can't believe it. We're divorced, remember?
Jack, he took responsibility for what you did and helped us. Don't insult him.
Whatever. Julia and I are moving into the old house, so why don't you take that old man and leave?
I shook off Jack's grip and glared at him. But no matter how hard I stared, he just shrugged and joked, "I'll call you later," before walking away. Zoe watched his back as he left, then turned to me with a bright smile.
You did it, Mom.
My name is Sarah. Jack and I got married in what was basically an elopement. His mother had already passed away, and when we decided to get married, one of the conditions was that we had to live with his father, Richard, in his family home. Not long after our new life started, we were blessed with a child. We named her Zoe and poured all our love into raising her. Eloping wasn't exactly something to be proud of, but I was happy. When Zoe turned 3 and things had settled down with raising her, we planned a trip. We left her with Richard, who she had been very attached to since she was little, so I felt safe leaving her in his care. It was our first road trip in a long time. It was not just Jack and I. My sister Julia also accompanied us.
I'm so happy. It's been a while since I've been on a trip. Your driving is so smooth and relaxing, Jack.
Julia sat in the back seat, rolling down the window with a bright smile. Jack, in the driver's seat, grinned at her. Julia had always been good at charming people. She called Jack Big Bro and was very attached to him. It was part of her natural charisma, and since she was my precious little sister, Jack had generously covered all the travel expenses. We wandered through tourist spots, laughing together. Both Julia and I were having a great time with Jack. Leaving the busy streets lined with lively shops, we walked down a small side road. While Jack stepped away to use the restroom, Julia and I sat down at a simple outdoor resting area, catching our breath.
Sorry, Sarah. I feel bad for tagging along on what was supposed to be a romantic trip for just you two.
It's fine. Jack seems to enjoy having you here too.
Really? That makes me feel better.
Julia tied her long hair back. At that moment, a sweet fragrance drifted into my nose. She must have noticed me staring in silence because she smiled softly.
Do you recognize it? I love this scent.
She pulled a small perfume bottle from her bag. It was an aroma mist I had given her for her birthday. It wasn't anything fancy, but I had mixed a fragrance oil that I thought suited her with distilled water and put it into a store-bought spray bottle. But Julia had been so thrilled, calling it my own special gift, with a beaming smile. I'm glad you like it.
You've always had great taste, Sarah. Ever since we were kids, you always picked the best things. You have an eye for quality.
I looked down, feeling a little embarrassed. I had never thought Julia saw me that way.
Mom and Dad keep saying you've turned into a bad person. But to me, you've always been someone I admire.
Something about her words felt unnatural, and I started to feel uneasy. It was as if she was about to disappear somewhere. If you ever need anything, just let me know. Jack and I are always on your side. Just then, Jack returned, and Julia immediately jumped up from the bench. Grabbing his arm playfully, she urged him to hurry so we could go sightseeing again. Since Zoe was born, I couldn't remember the last time I had walked outside feeling so relaxed. After a long day of walking, enjoying a delicious dinner, and returning to the hotel, I fell asleep right away. It must have been around 2 a.m. I woke up to the sound of the hotel room door opening. What's wrong? Still lying in bed, I asked Jack, who was standing by the door, his shoulders tense for a brief moment. He looked startled, as if he hadn't expected me to be awake. Feeling suspicious, I sat up and walked toward him. Where were you this late? Don't tell me you went drinking.
No, of course not. We have a long day tomorrow. Let's just get some sleep.
Jack tried to slip past me toward the bedroom, but at that moment, I caught a familiar scent. The fragrance spread through the small hotel room. It was unmistakably Julia's perfume. And it wasn't just a faint trace from spending the day together. It was strong, deliberate, as if she had put it on specifically to make sure I noticed. You smell like Julia. Did you go to her room? Between us, time seemed to freeze. Julia was staying in the next room. If Jack had a reason to go there, I didn't know what it was, but I didn't want to ask any more questions. Jack stared at me and said nothing. Then, after a moment, he scratched his head and gave a slight smirk.
Well, I mean,
I had no intention of questioning him further. But instead of looking guilty, Jack seemed almost amused, like a child whose prank had been exposed, as he began openly admitting to his affair. When he finished, he looked completely at ease, laughing.
See, I was honest with you, so you have to forgive me. My bad.
Saying that, Jack crawled into bed. I stood there in shock for several minutes before finally grabbing the hairbrush, cotton swabs, and other toiletries from the vanity and scattering them across the room.
What the hell are you doing?
Jack sat up in bed, staring at me in stunned disbelief. Ignoring him, I threw his clothes at him, then his shoes, and then I ran out of the room. It was 2 a.m. The sky was cloudless, filled with countless stars. I had fled from the hotel with nothing but my wallet and jacket. Jack didn't chase after me. I didn't even understand why I was running. I just knew I had to get away. During the day, the tourist town had been lively, but now at night, it was eerily quiet and lonely. I wandered aimlessly until the first train of the morning, then returned home. I never saw Jack or Julia again. They had eloped. When I arrived home early that morning, Richard was worried, wondering what had happened. Only little Zoe was delighted to see me back so soon, rushing into my arms. I hugged her tightly, burying my face in her soft shoulder.
Mom, welcome home.
I'm home, Zoe. But now, the lingering scent of that sweet perfume in my nose was nothing but disgusting. Holding Zoe close, I could smell her faintly sweet, slightly warm scent. Only that fragrance comforted me. 13 years passed. On paper, Jack and I had divorced, but we never spoke again. As a single mother, I devoted myself to raising Zoe, working hard to build a life for the two of us. No matter how painful the past had been, 13 years was a long time. Now 16, Zoe had grown into a bright, intelligent young woman. She was well behaved at school, had many friends, and was my pride and joy. Then, one day, while we were out shopping together,
Long time no see, Sarah.
I ran into Jack by chance. It happened in our local grocery store's vegetable section. Zoe, who didn't remember him as her father, looked at us both with a puzzled expression. I ignored him and turned to leave.
Hey, Sarah.
Gripping Zoe's hand, I headed for the exit. Sensing something from my reaction, Zoe obediently quickened her pace to follow me.
Wait, just hear me out.
I was shaken. The events of 13 years ago were locked away deep inside me, never spoken of, not even in front of Zoe. Zoe kept looking at me, confused. Jack, still gripping my wrist, began explaining why he had returned. He had always been terrible with money. He jumped from one job to another, and when his savings finally ran out, he had no choice but to return home. Even as he spoke, he looked oddly amused, like he was talking about someone else's problem. Just let go of me.
You're still living with that old senile man, aren't you? I can't believe it. We're divorced, you know.
Richard took responsibility for what you did when you ran off. Don't insult him.
Yeah, whatever. Julia and I are moving into the old house, so why don't you take that old man and get out?
I yanked my wrist free from Jack's grip and glared at him. But no matter how harshly I looked at him, he just shrugged, smirked playfully, and said, "I'll be in touch," before walking away. Zoe watched Jack's retreating back, then squeezed my hand tightly. When we got home, I received a message on my phone. I had no idea how he got my number, but it was from Jack. The message, filled with cheerful emojis, told me to clear out of the house in a month. I could already picture Jack's carefree smirk and Julia's condescending stare beside him. "A month," I muttered softly. Behind me, Zoe peeked over at the message on my phone.
What's this?
For a few seconds, I hesitated. Then I decided to tell her. I told her the man we had just met was her biological father. I vaguely explained that, after 13 years, Jack had returned because he had nowhere else to go. After listening, Zoe clapped her hands lightly with a bright smile.
You did it, Mom.
"What?"
Because that house.
Hearing Zoe's next words, I couldn't help but smile. For a long time, Richard, Zoe, and I had lived in that house. It had an old-fashioned charm, worn by time. The walls and roof in faded colors. The whole house seemed slightly tilted, and I wasn't sure whether it was my imagination or reality. The yard, overgrown with weeds, was left unattended due to our busy lives. A creeping vine spread its tendrils all over the ground, covering the wild grass. Opening the front door made the wooden floor creak. I remembered little Zoe running across that creaky floor, rushing into the kitchen after school. We were poor. I couldn't afford to buy everything she wanted. But one thing was certain. I had fought desperately to make both Zoe and myself happy. A month passed since my unexpected reunion with Jack. My phone rang. Jack's name appeared on the screen. Taking a deep breath, I pressed the call button.
Hey, Sarah, the house is locked. Are you out?
That house? No one's lived there for 5 years now. The real estate company has the keys, so I can't open it either.
What do you mean? Then where the hell are you living now?
I didn't answer his question. I simply closed my eyes. I remembered the day Richard had tears streaming down his face after my divorce from Jack. He sincerely apologized for his son's actions and even offered financial support. At the time, I didn't have a stable job. Richard helped me find work at the small sheet metal factory he owned in town. It was a small business with only a handful of employees, working as a subcontractor for a major company. I couldn't handle the heavy metal work, so I focused on accounting and sales, doing my best to contribute. But it was a male-dominated industry, both in the factory and among our business clients. I constantly felt like I didn't belong. The young male workers always looked down on me. I lacked physical strength and technical knowledge. I couldn't work overtime because I had to take care of Zoe. Every day, I gritted my teeth to keep going. The day an employee said to me, "You are only a wealthy young lady after all," I cried quietly so that Zoe would not see me. Even so, I worked harder than anyone else, building knowledge and connections in the industry. I wanted to make sure Zoe never felt the loneliness of growing up without a father. If I couldn't give her a dad, I would make up for it with money. Money. I needed money. I wanted to buy Zoe whatever clothes she liked and whatever food she liked. No matter how hard life was, I always smiled in front of Zoe. I wanted to remain a strong mother for her. Eventually, the company grew significantly. I developed a system that allowed for precise sheet metal processing with fast delivery times, securing my position within the company. Now, my income was stable, and for the past 5 years, I had been living in a high-end condominium with concierge service built in our hometown. Originally, Zoe and I never planned to live in such a luxurious place. But Richard, who had lived with us all these years, said something to me.
Sarah, thank you for everything. I can't even begin to express how grateful I am to you.
No, I should be the one thanking you. Even though I divorced Jack and had no real ties left, you gave me a jobs. I'm truly grateful. One day, Richard made a surprising proposal. A high-end condominium was being built nearby. As a token of appreciation for all the help I had given him, both in his personal life and in the company's management, he wanted to purchase a unit for me.
From now on, you and Zoe should live there together.
But Richard, I was planning to stay in this house forever. Richard shook his head. As he aged, he had started to feel uneasy about living alone. Perhaps sensing my hesitation, he reassured me with a smile, saying he would buy another unit in the same building so we could still be close.
This house is really old now. Wouldn't Zoe be embarrassed by it? Don't worry, I've already planned for her college expenses.
It's not about the money. I have no complaints about our life right now. I'm sure Zoe feels the same.
I know. I understand.
The house deterioration had become severe. Especially the exterior, the rust-covered tin walls made it look run down. Zoe had never once invited her friends over. She was probably embarrassed by the state of our home.
I should have made this decision sooner. I was too focused on work and neglected our daily lives.
The road Richard and I walked together had never been easy. The company had gone through unstable periods. We lost business when some of our clients went bankrupt. There were also workplace accidents. But no matter how hard things got, Richard and I worked side by side to overcome those hardships. Our relationship had long since evolved beyond just employer and employee. We had become comrades, bound by our struggles. All right, if you're offering this for Zoe and me, then I'm truly grateful. Thank you.
Of course. I owe you both so much.
But I have one condition. I had only one request. I didn't want us living in separate units. I wanted us to live together. Richard was shocked and fell silent for a moment, looking conflicted, but I continued speaking without hesitation. Moving into a new home and living in comfort is wonderful, but we're family, aren't we? Living together should be natural.
Sarah, that means a lot to me, but I don't want to be a burden.
Zoe doesn't have a father. She needs a grandfather. Please stay with us for her sake. I had always wanted to repay Richard for everything he had done. Without him, Zoe and I could have ended up on the streets after Jack abandoned us. Running the factory had never been easy for him. He was always at work, always pushing himself beyond his limits. Even when a blizzard hit and all employees were forced to take the day off, he was the only one still working in the factory. Even during periods when the company had taken on more orders than it could handle, Richard refused to stop. While other employees went home, he stayed behind, working late into the night. I often worried about him and tried to get him to rest, but every time, he would say the same thing.
Sarah, spend every second you can at home with Zoe. If you ever need money, just let me know.
And true to his word, he never failed to support us, making sure we had a place to live and enough to get by. But that wasn't all. Whenever she had a sports day or a school event, he would practically force me to leave work so I could be there. I'm fine, really. It's just a school event. I've missed plenty before.
Just go to Zoe. Don't worry, I've got things covered at work.
I knew Richard was pushing himself at his age, but he never showed it. In front of me, he remained strong, the reliable father-in-law I had always known. At the sports field, I watched Zoe running with all her might during the school sports day. Noticing me, she beamed and waved enthusiastically. I had always thought about how I could repay Richard for everything he had done for us. When I proposed that we live together, Richard was speechless at first. Then, with a small sigh, he gave in. He placed a hand on my shoulder and offered me a gentle smile.
I'm getting older. I may not be able to support you and Zoe much longer.
You've already done more than enough for us. Now, it's my turn to support you.
One day, I might just become a burden to you and Zoe.
I looked Richard in the eyes. There were things words couldn't express, but he knew. Zoe and I needed him. He was our family. For Zoe's sake, please live with us.
Geez, if you use Zoe as an excuse, how am I supposed to refuse?
But it's the truth. She needs her grandfather.
You really are the best salesperson in the company, Sarah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And so, the three of us, Zoe, Richard, and I, began our new life in the condominium. That was already 5 years ago. No one lived in our old house anymore. Sometimes, when passing by his former home, Richard would sigh, saying it was a little sad that no new tenants had moved in. Though he had turned the house over to a real estate agency, it must have been painful to see his childhood home slowly turning into a ghost house. Zoe knew how much it meant to Richard, which is why she was so thrilled when she heard that Jack planned to move in. "Mom, this is great," she said. But Jack had no idea what kind of state the house was in. After 5 years of being unoccupied, it was practically abandoned. The exterior walls and roof were severely damaged. No buyers were interested, and the real estate company had already told us that demolition was only a matter of time.
Hey, are you even listening? I can't live in this dump. Where the hell is Zoe living?
Jack's voice roared through the receiver, filled with frustration. I calmly explained everything over the phone. How Richard had helped me, how we had worked together to grow the company, how we had moved into the condominium together. I didn't tell him where we lived, but I made it clear we had long since left the old house. When I finished, Jack practically screamed.
So you're just living off that rich old CEO now? You gold-digging bitch! I have a right to that company too. I'm coming over there right now.
His voice was so loud that I instinctively held the phone away from my ear. Richard, who had been listening nearby, gave me a look and took the receiver from my hand. Right now, Richard and I worked on the same floor. And the reason for that was,
Long time no see, Jack.
What, Dad? Why are you there? Whatever, I already heard from Sarah. Sounds like the company's doing pretty well now. I don't have a job right now, so just set me up with some cushy position, will ya?
You've got to be kidding me.
even I was shocked at the sheer force of Richard's anger. His shoulders trembled, his fists clenched tightly. I had never seen him so furious before.
Sarah is now the vice president of this company. If it weren't for her, we never would have come this far.
Vice President? Are you serious? Well, whatever, Dad. Let's just live together again, you know? Wouldn't it be easier for you to live with your real son?
Jack, while you were off the grid, Sarah was the one who took care of me. She supported me through everything. To me, she's far more important than you, and she's my real daughter.
My real daughter. Hearing those words, my chest tightened with emotion. After leaving Jack, I never went back to my parents' house. I had eloped and shamed my family. I felt I had no right to face them. For so many years, I had felt like I was raising Zoe all alone. Richard scolded Jack over the phone again and again. He called him out for abandoning Zoe and me. He explained how much I had suffered without any financial support.
I'm doing much better now, but back then, my health wasn't good. If Sarah hadn't been there, I might not even be standing here today.
Oh, come on. That's an exaggeration. From now on, I'll support you, Dad. Let's work together.
Jack, let me make this absolutely clear. You are disowned. Don't ever call here again.
Without waiting for a response, Richard slammed the phone down. Now, it was just the two of us in the office. We locked eyes and then burst out laughing. No words were needed. Richard and I had truly become like a real father and daughter. I had never raised Zoe alone. I had a kind and loving father right in front of me, sharing this moment of laughter. For that, I was deeply grateful. Jack never contacted us again. He had always drifted through life like a wandering rootless weed, so no one was particularly worried when he disappeared. But 3 months later, my phone rang with a blocked number. At the time, I was at home on my day off. Zoe had insisted on cooking lunch for me, so I sat on the couch, watching her cheerfully prepare the meal.
Hello. Do you know who this is?
A familiar voice came from the phone. There was no way I could forget my sister's voice. "How have you been?" I asked. "Fine," Julia replied shortly. Even though I couldn't see her, I could tell from her voice that she was down. She confessed that after eloping with Jack, she had gotten involved with another married man. Recently, the man's wife found out and sued her. Now, she owed a huge sum in damages.
I'm sorry, Sarah. I know I have no right to ask, but please help me. I'm begging you.
I understand how hard this must be for you, but I can't help you.
Why? What about our bond as sisters? You always said you'd be there for me if I needed you.
That's true. No matter what, you're still my family, but right now, I have an even more important family right in front of me. From the kitchen, Zoe brought out a beautifully plated dish of pasta. Richard, smiling warmly, set down drinks and forks. Not wanting to interrupt my call, they quietly put their hands together and started eating. A faint scent of garlic filled the room, making my stomach growl slightly.
I guess it was selfish of me to ask.
Yeah,
I love you, Sarah. That's why.
because I wanted to be like you. I didn't understand what Julia meant. Even now, I don't think I ever will. By running off with Jack, did she think she could live a life like mine? But what kind of life had I even lived? Saying I never resented Julia for taking Jack from me would be a lie. But even so, she was still my sister. I wanted her to be happy. A few years later, I learned from my parents that Julia and Jack had divorced. Richard retired as the CEO. With his strong recommendation, I was appointed as the new CEO. Being a woman in a male-dominated industry came with many challenges. But by my side were the young men who had once worked alongside me in that small factory, supporting me as I led the company. I was busy, but my life was fulfilling. I had defied my parents, eloped, then divorced, and now I was living for my work. Would my parents ever accept me? Would they be sad about the life I had chosen? The many decisions I had made in my life were not mistakes. Someday, I want to take Zoe and visit my parents. Will they praise me then? My dad and mom.
When I mentioned my daughter-in-law, Charlotte, Kyle fell silent. Then he let out a big sigh.
Charlotte didn't pick up the phone. And she hasn't been to your house, right?
Well, but she does send me $10 every month. I use it to buy snacks for the caregiver. When I said that, Kyle burst out laughing.
Come on, Mom. You gotta be kidding me.
Why was Kyle laughing? What do you mean, kidding?
The amount is way off. I told Charlotte to send $1,000 every month.
$1,000? Hold on a second. I couldn't believe what Kyle was saying, so I rushed to grab my bank statement. I checked the amount, and sure enough, it was only $10 a month. It really is $10 a month. That's what I thought it was supposed to be. On the other end of the phone, Kyle was clearly shaken. I could hear him muttering something to himself.
Sorry, I need to think about this. I'll call you back. Can you send me a photo of that bank statement? I just want to double check.
Got it. I'll send it right away.
All right, talk later.
With that, he hung up. I had no idea what was going on, but something about it didn't sit right with me. I went ahead and took a picture of the bank statement and sent it to Kyle. Not long after, Kyle called me back right away.
Mom, I'm sorry. I'll be coming home next month, so I'll give you the money in person. I've already talked to Charlotte about it.
I'm happy you're coming back, but what's going on?
I want to explain, but I just can't right now. Just wait for now, okay? There's nothing to worry about.
With that, Kyle abruptly hung up. My name is Angela. Right now, I'm sitting in front of a picture praying. In the framed photo before me, my husband is smiling. How many decades have passed since he left us? I've grown old, but in that picture, he remains forever young, smiling as always. Beside me, praying, is my son, Kyle. I raised him all on my own. My life was never easy, and with my busy work schedule, he must have felt lonely at times. Even so, Kyle always took the initiative. He made lunch for both of us, helped with cleaning and laundry, and did whatever he could around the house. Because of that, I was able to focus on my work. Kyle, congratulations on graduating from college.
Mom, I should be the one thanking you for raising me all these years. I'll work hard from now on, so you can take a break.
Yes, today is Kyle's college graduation ceremony. These 22 years felt both long and short. Now that Kyle is stepping into adulthood, I finally feel like a weight has been lifted from my shoulders. Working hard is great, but make sure to take care of yourself, okay? Ever since Kyle started working, I found myself feeling a bit bored. I had already retired from my job, and since I had always been a workaholic, I didn't really have any friends. Staying home all the time wasn't good for my health, and more than anything, I was worried about my finances for the future. So I decided to take on a part-time job. That's how Kyle and I each started our new lives. A few years passed, and then one day,
Mom, you don't have any plans next Sunday, right?
"Not really. Do you need me to do something?" Kyle scratched his head, his face turning a little red.
Actually, there's someone I want you to meet. Sorry for the short notice, but can you?
Seeing how nervous he was, I couldn't help but chuckle a little. "Of course, you've found someone special, haven't you? I'm looking forward to it."
I never said that.
"You don't have to, I can tell." For the next few days, I was surprised at how excited I felt. At the same time, the thought of Kyle starting a new life away from me made me feel a little lonely. With those mixed emotions, the promised day arrived. Kyle arrived right on time and brought her with him.
I'd like to introduce you. This is Charlotte.
Nice to meet you. I'm Charlotte, and I'm dating Kyle.
Charlotte had a very modern, trendy look. Her hairstyle and makeup were styled after popular artists, and she wore cute, fashionable clothes. At first glance, she seemed a bit flashy and carefree. But since Kyle had always been the quiet type, I figured someone as lively and cheerful as Charlotte might be a good match for him. And in reality, she wasn't shy around me at all. She excitedly showed me her phone screen and passionately talked about her favorite artists. Once we all felt completely comfortable, Kyle turned to me and said, "I'm planning to marry Charlotte." I had no reason to object. Before long, Kyle and Charlotte got married and moved into their new home, just 15 minutes away from mine. I had assumed I would be living alone from then on, but one day, Charlotte suddenly came to my house and said, "Please teach me how to cook." Even if you ask me all of a sudden, I'm not that great at it myself.
But you're still way better than me. I have no idea where to even start. Kyle is always busy, so I really want to learn how to cook on my own.
Charlotte's big eyes welled up with tears as she clenched her hands together, pleading with me. Honestly, I was busy with my part-time job, but seeing how much my daughter-in-law was relying on me, I couldn't just turn her away. "All right, I'll teach you everything I can."
Thank you so much.
Charlotte's eyes lit up with excitement. From then on, I started teaching her how to cook at her house. I showed her how to pick out good ingredients at the grocery store, how to shop smart and save money, and how to plan meals efficiently. To make sure I wasn't teaching her anything wrong, I even studied cookbooks in advance. It reminded me of when Kyle was little, standing in the kitchen beside me, and I couldn't help but smile. It felt like I had gained a daughter, and my days became lively and full of joy. But those happy days didn't last long. At first, Charlotte seemed eager to learn. She took notes on everything I said, and even recorded videos on her phone when the cooking steps got too complicated. But after about a month, Charlotte seemed to lose interest, and she stopped taking notes and just stood there, staring blankly. Even when I carefully explained things to her, she would only give half-hearted responses. Worse yet, while I was cooking, she would pull out her phone and say, "My favorite artist is doing a live stream," then just stare at the screen. Normally, I might have scolded her for that kind of behavior. But around that time, I was exhausted, not only from my busy part-time job, but also from studying cooking, something I normally never did, so I didn't even have the energy to scold her. In the end, I found myself responsible for both my own household chores and making meals for Kyle and Charlotte. Still, I never complained and kept cooking. I told myself this was my way of making up for all the years I spent focused on work, unable to do much for Kyle. But sadly, I was older than I thought. As the busy days went by, my body slowly stopped keeping up with me. Then one day, while working as usual, I was suddenly hit by a wave of intense dizziness. My coworkers called out to me, but before I could respond, I collapsed right there. I could faintly hear people shouting, "Call an ambulance." As their voices faded into the distance, my vision went completely black. How many days had passed? When I opened my eyes, the first thing I saw was an unfamiliar ceiling. My mind felt foggy as I tried to think. I was lying in a hospital bed, tubes running all over my body. What on earth had happened to me? When I moved my eyes slightly, I saw Kyle sitting in a chair beside me, breathing softly in his sleep. Seeing Kyle there gave me a small sense of relief, but as I tried to call out to him, I was hit with a shock. I wanted to ask him what had happened to me, but my tongue felt numb and it wouldn't move. "I can't speak. What's going on?" Panic started creeping in, and when I tried to sit up, I realized my entire left side was numb and wouldn't move. Not knowing what had happened to my body, my anxiety quickly turned into sheer terror. "Kyle, help me." As I struggled desperately with my unresponsive body and numb tongue, Kyle finally woke up.
You're awake. Thank God. I'll go get the doctor. Just hang in there.
Saying that, he rushed out of the room. In the meantime, all I could do was stare blankly at the ceiling. Thinking about what would happen to me from now on, I felt like my anxiety was crushing me. Kyle quickly returned with the doctor. The doctor, an older man with a kind expression, made me feel a little more at ease.
"I'm relieved to see you've regained consciousness."
I tried to sit up again, but before I could, the doctor gently raised his hand to stop me.
"Please don't push yourself. I need you to stay calm and listen carefully. Based on the test results, Angela, you've had a stroke."
A stroke. I couldn't process what he was saying right away, but slowly, a sense of despair began to take over me.
That being said, the fact that you collapsed at work was a small stroke of luck. They were able to give you emergency treatment immediately, so it didn't become life-threatening.
But my body. I struggled to move my numb tongue, forcing out my words. Hearing how unrecognizable my voice had become, Kyle stood behind the doctor, silently shedding tears. But even as he listened to my broken words, The doctor's gentle expression didn't waver.
Please don't worry. It may be difficult right now, but with rehabilitation, you will improve.
I see. Kyle, unable to hold back anymore, grabbed my hand tightly.
Mom, rehab might be tough, but I'll help you through it. We'll get through this together.
Hearing Kyle's desperate plea, my own tears began to fall. But at that moment, a question popped into my mind. Where's Charlotte? Kyle averted his gaze.
She went to a concert, but please don't hold it against her.
I wasn't planning to blame her, but he looked guilty saying it. And with that, my rehabilitation journey began. At first, my therapy started with simply bending my unresponsive arms and legs with the help of an occupational therapist. On his days off, Kyle would come to the hospital and assist with my rehabilitation. Charlotte also visited, but she would mostly just watch while Kyle did everything. My rehabilitation was grueling, an endless cycle of painful, exhausting sessions. But thanks to everyone's support, I gradually regained the ability to speak more clearly than before. Finally, after 6 months, I was told I could be discharged. I had to accept life in a wheelchair, but even so, I felt fortunate. It could have been worse. On the day of my discharge, both Kyle and Charlotte came to pick me up. However, I couldn't help but notice that Kyle's expression seemed unusually tense. After saying my goodbyes to the doctors and occupational therapists who had taken care of me, I finally returned home for the first time in months, only to find the house impeccably clean and organized. Not only that, but handrails and ramps had been newly installed. Did Kyle do all this?
Yeah, I wanted to make sure things were as easy as possible for you.
Kyle scratched his head for a while, then, as if making up his mind, finally spoke.
So, Mom, I know things will be tough for you for a while. That's why I want us to live together.
Live with me. What about your house?
We're giving it up.
His sudden decision left me speechless. Given my condition, having someone nearby would definitely be a relief. But was it really okay for me to ruin my young son's married life because of my situation? Besides that, there was something else that worried me. I glanced over at Charlotte. Her eyes were glued to her phone, not listening to what we were saying. She was probably watching something about that artist she was obsessed with. I couldn't shake the feeling about how Charlotte had once asked me to teach her how to cook, only to do nothing and leave all the household chores to me. I had no intention of blaming her for it, but I couldn't help but wonder if I could trust her.
You're okay with this, right? Mom, I'll do anything for you.
Thank you, that means a lot to me, but... As I hesitated, unsure of what to say, Charlotte finally looked up from her phone.
Kyle, your mom just got discharged today. It's a bit much to hit her with this right away, don't you think?
Kyle looked taken aback, as if he hadn't expected her to say that.
Yeah, I get that. But this is something we need to decide quickly, right?
It's an important decision, which is exactly why we need to take our time and talk it through properly. You can't just make plans without involving her.
Charlotte was sharper than I had given her credit for. Even so, Kyle wasn't willing to back down from his decision.
Listen, my dad is gone, and we don't have any relatives we can rely on. Who else is going to take care of Mom?
Their argument grew more intense, and I found myself unable to step in. I wanted someone by my side. but I didn't want to be a burden. That contradiction weighed heavily on me.
You say you'll take care of her, but aren't you about to leave for an overseas business trip? Am I supposed to take care of her alone while you're gone?
That's why I already asked you to handle it.
But I can't do it. That's why it's best to leave it to professionals.
Charlotte's words made both of us stop and think.
I don't want to leave Angela alone either. But I have no experience with caregiving, and I know it would be difficult. So why don't we hire a professional caregiver, and we'll cover the cost?
Charlotte's unexpected suggestion took me by surprise. It was true that hiring a caregiver would ease my uneasy feelings. Kyle would be able to focus on his job without worrying. It would cost some money, but it truly seemed like the best option. Kyle crossed his arms, deep in thought. Charlotte stood with her hands on her hips, looking rather pleased with herself.
A caregiver? Yeah, I guess leaving it to a professional is a solid idea. Mom, what do you think?
I agree. I don't want to disrupt your lives. In the end, Charlotte's idea was the one we went with. I was honestly surprised that she had suggested hiring a caregiver. Up until now, I had assumed she didn't really care about me at all. I felt ashamed for having doubted Charlotte just moments ago. From there, Kyle and Charlotte continued their discussion, deciding on which caregiver to hire. Finally, Kyle would cover the cost, and a professional caregiver would be brought in to help. Since Kyle had work to focus on, Charlotte was put in charge of managing the finances.
All right, Angela. I'll personally make sure the payments are handled responsibly.
Charlotte curled her lips into a smile. Just as Kyle had said, he soon left for his long-term overseas assignment. Charlotte kept her promise and deposited money into my account for the caregiver. However, the amount was only $10, a very small sum. Still, no matter how little it was, I was in no position to earn money myself anymore. Besides, I had my savings from years of working, along with my insurance, so it wasn't a problem. More than anything, I appreciated the thoughtfulness behind even a small contribution. So, I decided to use that money to buy small thank you treats for my caregiver. And the caregiver who came to my house was truly wonderful. She was always attentive to my condition and willingly helped me with my rehabilitation. Charlotte never came to my house, but with the caregiver taking care of me, I never felt lonely. Plus, since the caregiver was close to my age, we got along as if we had known each other for years. When she realized my daughter-in-law never visited, she even started stopping by outside of work just to check in on me. But no matter how close we became, she never crossed any professional boundaries. That sense of balance only made me trust her more. At first, I was overwhelmed by my physical limitations, but over time, I had completely adjusted. In fact, thanks to my caregiver, my days were even more enjoyable than before. Those happy days passed by in the blink of an eye, and one morning, 6 months after my discharge, as I was having breakfast, I received a call from Kyle.
Hello? It's Kyle. Has anything changed since we last talked? Are you managing okay?
Kyle's voice sounded a bit tired. I've been living happily, thanks to you. My caregiver is a wonderful person.
That's good to hear. I've been worried about that for a while.
Hearing my voice must have reassured him because I could hear him exhale deeply over the phone. What about you? Work sounds tough.
It is. I was confident in my Russian, but real-life conversations are on a whole different level.
You'll get used to it eventually. Maybe being a little pushy would actually help. For a while, we continued chatting and laughing. Well, mostly, it was Kyle venting about work. Then, suddenly, a question crossed my mind. I love talking with you, but have you called Charlotte yet? The moment I mentioned Charlotte, Kyle fell silent. Then, he let out a long sigh.
Charlotte didn't pick up. She's probably at some concert or something. She hasn't been by your place either, has she?
Well, yeah, but she does send me $10 every month. I use it to buy tea and snacks for the caregiver. When I said that, Kyle burst into loud laughter.
Mom, come on. You're joking, right?
But I didn't understand why he was laughing. What do you mean joking?
The amount is way off. I told Charlotte to send $1,000 every month.
$1,000? Wait a second. I couldn't believe what Kyle was saying, so I hurried to grab my bank statement. I checked the balance, and sure enough, it was only $10 a month. It's definitely $10. That's what I've been getting. Kyle was clearly shaken on the other end of the call. I could hear him muttering to himself.
Mom, I need to think about this. Can you send me a picture of the bank statement? I just want to double check.
All right, I'll send it right away.
Okay, we'll talk later.
With that, Kyle hung up. I had no idea what was going on, but something about it didn't sit right with me. I went ahead and took a picture of the bank statement and sent it to Kyle. Not long after, he called me back.
Mom, I'm so sorry. I'll be coming home next month, and I'll give you the money in person. I've already talked to Charlotte about it.
I'm happy you're coming back, but what's going on?
I want to explain, but I can't right now. Just wait for now, okay? There's nothing to worry about.
With that, Kyle abruptly hung up. A month passed, and I was still feeling uneasy about the situation. Then, out of nowhere, I got a call from Charlotte. It was a rare occurrence. I assumed she was planning some kind of surprise for Kyle's return and eagerly answered the phone. But to my surprise, Charlotte was sobbing uncontrollably.
Angela, it's terrible.
Wait, what happened? Calm down.
Please. You have to stop Kyle.
What do you mean? I tried my best to soothe Charlotte, but her crying only grew worse. On top of that, nothing she was saying made any sense. It wasn't even a real conversation. Why do I need to stop Kyle?
He's going to be so mad. I can't explain, but please, tell him not to come back to the US.
Since I wasn't getting anywhere with her, I decided to end the call and dial Kyle instead. Fortunately, he picked up right away. When I mentioned Charlotte, Kyle simply said, "I will explain everything when we meet tomorrow." And then, the next day arrived. Kyle and Charlotte came to my house together. Charlotte looked sulky and refused to meet my eyes. But as soon as we reached the living room, Kyle told her to apologize. Though clearly unhappy about it, Charlotte lowered her head in front of me.
Angela, I'm truly sorry.
Then, without hesitation, Kyle began explaining everything.
I originally told Charlotte to give you the money in person, both to help with your expenses and to check in on you. That's why I transferred an extra $1,000 into our household account every month. Right, Charlotte?
That's correct.
She responded, still keeping her head down.
But in reality, instead of handing over the $1,000, she only deposited $10 into your account. So Charlotte, where did the rest of that money go?
I spent it on concert tours.
Concerts cost that much?
Well, I wanted to follow the entire national tour, and my sister Melanie wanted to come too, so it added up.
Charlotte showed no sign of guilt, and she just pouted like a child caught misbehaving.
You didn't just go to concerts. You splurged on luxury hotels at every stop, didn't you?
At Kyle's words, Charlotte shot him a glare.
So what? I have the right to travel too.
Shut up. If that's what you wanted, you should have just been honest. You spent the money that was meant for Mom's caregiver. What would you have done if something had happened to her?
Charlotte didn't respond. She just lowered her head again. So Charlotte, you had no idea Kyle was coming back to the US?
Of course not. I came back so suddenly, so she was caught completely off guard.
That's right. Kyle hadn't told Charlotte he was returning. Not only had Kyle suddenly returned to the US, but he also told Charlotte, "This time, I'm handing over the money in person." That sent Charlotte into a panic, because by then, there was no money left in the account to cover her credit card payments. Desperate, Charlotte tried to steal the $1,000 from Kyle's bag when he wasn't looking. But even that was part of Kyle's trap. He had secretly recorded the entire thing. With that video, along with the photo of my bank statement, Charlotte had no choice but to confess everything. As Kyle recounted Charlotte's wrongdoing, I could see tears forming in his eyes. It was understandable that he had been betrayed by someone he trusted. Seeing that, I couldn't help but feel heartbroken as well. But Charlotte remained sullen, her expression unchanged. She kept glancing at the clock, as if impatient for this to be over. Kyle finally lost his temper.
Charlotte, what's with that attitude? You did all of this. Don't you feel even a little sorry for my mom?
Charlotte let out a loud, annoyed sigh.
Oh, just give it a rest already. You're so damn annoying. It's always mom this, mom that. I'm sick of it.
What did you just say? What's wrong with caring about my mom?
It is a problem. We got married and all you ever talked about was your mom. You never paid any attention to me. You're a grown man and you're still a mama's boy. It's disgusting.
Kyle's face turned bright red. He looked like he was about to snap, so I quickly stepped in. That's enough. Both of you stop it.
But, Mom.
It's fine, but Charlotte, you might be right. Maybe Kyle didn't give you enough attention. But what about you?
What are you trying to say?
Aren't you the one who's been obsessing over some artist like a teenager? You were always glued to your phone. What about that? Charlotte's expression faltered.
What the hell? That makes no sense. Whatever. You two can enjoy your little happy life together.
With those parting words, Charlotte stormed out of the house as if she were fleeing. Kyle didn't chase after her this time.
Mom, I'm really sorry.
Don't worry about it. A lot of good things came out of this too. Kyle and I looked at each other and couldn't help but burst into laughter. That day, Kyle stayed with me. It had been years since we had spent time together like that. Even though I now lived in a wheelchair, I was able to enjoy the same happiness as before. And that was enough for me. However, this incident ultimately led to Kyle and Charlotte getting divorced. I had encouraged them to reconcile, but then an even bigger problem came to light. The amount Charlotte had spent following her favorite artist was far greater than what was missing from my caregiver funds. So where had all that extra money come from? It turned out she had been selling Kyle's personal belongings to fund her obsession. As if that weren't bad enough, an even more shocking truth came to light. Charlotte's sister, Melanie, had also gone through a divorce in the past, using the exact same scheme. She had been ordered to pay alimony, but instead of using her own money, she had secretly withdrawn it from Kyle's account. When I heard that, I was so shocked I couldn't even speak. At that moment, I realized there was no way I could defend Charlotte any longer. If Kyle had stayed married to her, she would have eventually taken everything from him. After the divorce, Kyle moved in with me.
What a nightmare. Who sells someone else's belongings to follow a band around?
Well, I guess for some people, that's just how much they love their favorite artists. But the divorce went through without any issues, right?
Yeah, of course. I have all the evidence. I also filed for damages and alimony. But honestly, I doubt she'll be able to pay.
After that, we completely lost contact with Charlotte, so I have no idea what became of her. From what Kyle heard, she and Melanie were now living together in a rundown apartment. Instead of supporting each other as sisters, they spent their days blaming each other while desperately trying to make money. But that was no longer our concern. Kyle's overseas assignment eventually ended, and he returned to the US for good. His job kept him busy as always, but he still took care of me whenever he could. My caregiver remained just as wonderful as before, always looking out for me. That alone made me feel incredibly fortunate, but there was one more thing that made me happy. The first time Kyle met my caregiver, they started talking and made an interesting discovery. Her daughter happened to work at the same company as Kyle, and she was one of his junior colleagues. What a small world. But the surprises didn't stop there. It turned out that my caregiver's daughter had feelings for Kyle. She had kept them to herself while he was married, but now that he was single again, she had started making her move. These days, she often comes over to my house, helping Kyle with chores as they spend more and more time together. Neither I nor my caregiver had any objections to their relationship. She was a wonderful woman, and we got along so well. I was sure our children would too. When I first had my stroke and ended up in a wheelchair, I had no idea how I would manage. But in the end, I became happier than I had ever been before. Now, I simply look forward to seeing what my future holds for these two young people.
Michael had no one else to rely on but me when he ran away from home when he was young, because his parents disapproved him of pursuing music. I married him knowing exactly what I was getting into. I was determined to support him for the rest of my life. But when Michael finally came back after a long time, he plopped down on the couch and said something surprising.
Let's divorce. I'm remarrying my lover. I won't ever see you or our daughter again.
What? As I cut ties with Michael and spent peaceful days with my daughter, a year passed before I knew it.
Hey, Ashley. Daddy's back. Wow, you've grown so much.
For a brief moment, Ashley looked at Michael with a surprised expression, but that quickly turned into pure hatred.
Well, who are you?
Huh?
I said, who on earth are you?
Even I, her mother, had never seen Ashley like this before. Michael seemed taken aback by her hostility.
What do you mean? I'm your dad.
I don't have a dad.
My name is Catherine Adams. I'm a 38-year-old working mom. I've been married to my husband, Michael, for 13 years. Our daughter, Ashley, who was the reason we got married in the first place, is now 13 years old. For the past 13 years, I've been juggling work while supporting Michael's music career and raising Ashley. It felt like time flew by in the blink of an eye. To be honest, I barely had any time for myself. I met Michael at a jazz bar. Back then, jazz felt a bit too sophisticated for me, and I had never really gone out of my way to listen to it. But when my best friend, Megan, dragged me to that bar, I was completely mesmerized. No, more accurately, I was mesmerized by Michael. Watching him passionately play the bass, he looked absolutely radiant. From that night on, I started looking up his performance schedule and frequently went to the jazz bar. Sometimes with Megan, sometimes alone. It was a small bar. After going a few times, I started recognizing familiar faces, and eventually, I got to know Michael and his bandmates. After their performances, we would often grab drinks together. Then, one night, I missed the last train home. Michael invited me over to his place. I still remember how my heart felt like it was about to burst from a mix of nerves and excitement, being alone with the man I admired so much. Probably that night, Ashley was conceived. From that point on, Michael and I got closer fast, and we started going back and forth between each other's apartments. I had moved out of my parents' house when I started college and had been living on my own. A while later, I noticed changes in my body and went to a maternity clinic alone. That's when I found out I was pregnant. Looking back now, I can't help but be amazed at the strength of women. Even though I was completely in love with Michael, I was already making plans for how to raise our child. Michael was still trying to make a name for himself as a musician, so I knew I couldn't count on his income. That meant I had to keep working. I would also need my parents' support. I started making plans in my head. Of course, I had some vague anxieties, but above all, I was genuinely happy to be carrying Michael's child. I was sure Michael would be happy too. I also hoped this would give him motivation for the future, so I had no hesitation in telling him, "I'm pregnant." But when I invited Michael over to talk, he just sat there smoking a cigarette with a troubled look on his face.
Wait, seriously?
That was all he said before falling into silence. His reaction was completely unexpected. Still, I understood why he was in shock. It's surprising, right? I was shocked too. I couldn't take the silence anymore, so I was the one to break it. Even then, Michael remained silent for a long time. And then, muttering bitterly, he said,
I can't do this.
"What?"
I want to continue music, but I have no money. I can't have a kid.
I knew how important music was to Michael. That was the man I had fallen for. And I was fully aware that he wasn't financially stable. "I'll work too. We'll figure it out. Michael, your life might change a little, but you can still keep doing music."
What do you mean a little? I don't do things halfway. And besides, how do I even know it's mine?
I suddenly felt nauseous at Michael's words and rushed to the bathroom. I wasn't sure if it was morning sickness or just my reaction to what he said. But as I threw up, I cried uncontrollably. When I returned to the room, Michael had already lit his second cigarette, exhaling the smoke with an irritated expression. "Could you stop smoking? It's not good for the baby." That seemed to annoy him even more. He angrily put out his cigarette and stood up.
This is such a pain. I'm out of here.
Wait, we still need to. Before I could finish, he yanked open the door and stormed out, not even bothering to put his shoes on properly. I just stood there, staring blankly at him leaving. A few days later, Megan invited me out for lunch. I wasn't really in the mood, but I decided to go since I wanted to tell her about the pregnancy. It was a beautifully sunny day. We got a table on the garden terrace. Megan ordered a lunch plate, while I, having no appetite, just got a salad.
No appetite? That's unusual. You usually eat more than me.
Do I? I think you still beat me though. I tried to laugh it off, but even I could tell my smile didn't come out right. I'm pregnant. Megan's eyes widened in surprise for a moment before she took my hands in hers.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. Her genuine happiness for me made my tears start to well up.
Hey, why are you crying? You're gonna be a mom now. Pull yourself together.
Megan gave me a warm smile, but I couldn't hold back the tears anymore. She moved to sit next to me and gently rubbed my back until I calmed down.
What's wrong? Those don't seem like happy tears.
Once I finally settled down, Megan asked. She's always been sharp, and she's always been on my side. As I told her about Michael's reaction and how he hadn't contacted me since, her expression slowly turned to anger. By the time I finished, she looked dead serious.
Catherine, do you still love him, even after all that?
I think I do. That's why I wanted him to be happy about the pregnancy and think about our future together. Yeah, I think I do. Maybe he's just overwhelmed. Maybe once the baby's born, he'll step up as a father. I want to believe that.
Got it. Leave it to me.
Megan answered confidently and squeezed my hand again.
You just focus on resting. You're the only one who can protect this baby.
Her words didn't erase all my worries, but they did give me strength. That night, for the first time in a long time, I slept soundly. Then, a few days later, Michael called.
Megan told me everything. It's definitely my kid, so I'll take responsibility.
I don't know exactly what Megan said to him, but knowing my smart and strong-willed Megan, she must have convinced him with logic and made him face his responsibility. Michael sounded like he had been completely straightened out. Take responsibility? How? I knew what he meant, but I wanted to hear it from him.
Let's get married.
It wasn't the most romantic proposal, but I was genuinely happy. I was overflowing with joy, and suddenly, everything around me seemed to sparkle. I never imagined that this moment would be the peak of my happiness. We didn't have the money for a wedding, so we just got legally married. Michael's bandmates and my friends threw us a small celebration party. I can still vividly remember feeling anxious as Michael sat there, cold and detached the whole time, even as everyone cheered for us. I felt so guilty toward everyone who went out of their way to celebrate for us. Our marriage started out this way, distant and unsteady from the very beginning. Since we couldn't rely on Michael's income, I worked right up until I was about to give birth, then returned to work as soon as I could. Michael was too busy with music, so he barely came home. Even after Ashley was born, that never changed. Try to make some time to spend with Ashley once in a while. Michael claimed he was getting more out-of-town gigs, so he barely came home. But none of the money from those gigs ever made its way into our household. I had my frustrations, but I expected this. I figured if I just worked harder, we'd be fine. But what I couldn't accept was how, even when Michael did come home, he never spent time with Ashley. He just slept all the time. I couldn't stand seeing Ashley being neglected like that. At this rate, she's gonna grow up not even knowing who her dad is.
So what? You agreed to me continuing my music, right? Nobody wants a musician with a family. Getting married already hurt my image. It's better for everyone if she just grows up without knowing me.
There are plenty of musicians who balance their careers and their families. If Michael couldn't make a name for himself, wasn't that just because he lacked the talent? I wanted to say it, but I knew it was pointless. From that day on, I stopped expecting anything from Michael. I was able to raise Ashley while working, thanks to the support of my parents. And now, this year, Ashley had entered middle school. Ashley, your dad's coming home today.
What? Why?
What do you mean? Why? He doesn't need a reason to come home. I smiled as I answered, but I knew the reason. Michael always came home for the same reason. Whenever he ran out of money, he'd come back, stay for a bit, beg for cash, and then leave again. Michael had no one else to rely on but me after his parents disapproved of his music, and he ran away from home when he was young. I married him knowing what I was getting into. I was prepared to support him for the rest of my life. But when Michael finally came back after a long time, he plopped down on the couch and said something surprising.
Let's divorce. I'm remarrying my lover. I won't ever see you or our daughter again.
What? I thought I was used to being surprised by Michael, but this time I honestly couldn't believe my ears. Maybe my silence irritated him because he pulled out a cigarette, lit it, and took a deep drag.
Don't make me say it twice. I'm marrying my lover. So I'll never see you two again.
I picked up the ashtray and turned his words over in my mind. A lover? Since when? I had no idea. Was all that time spent on the road actually just him being with her?
You thought I came back to ask for money, didn't you? Don't worry. My lover's loaded. I don't need to mooch off you anymore. Here, take care of this.
Michael tossed the divorce papers onto the table, waving me away, and walked out. His signature was already on the papers. The witness section had the name of his band leader. Seeing that somehow made a small wave of sadness creep over me. Before I realized it, I was dialing Megan's number. She must have sensed something was wrong because she immediately made plans to meet me that day. That evening, after work, I headed to the bar where we agreed to meet. Megan had arrived before me. Sorry to keep you waiting.
I just got here too. Let's order something. Want a drink?
I could drink, but I had no interest in alcohol, so I shook my head. Megan ordered a few dishes and a soft drink for me. When our drinks arrived, I finally told her everything about Michael.
Catherine, I'm so sorry. I knew Michael was cheating.
To my shock, Megan apologized after hearing me out. You knew?
I saw them together. They looked really close, so I followed them, and they went into a motel. I even took pictures. If you need them, just say the word.
She scrolled through her phone and showed me a photo. A man and a woman arm in arm, gazing into each other's eyes. The man was unmistakably Michael. I didn't recognize the woman, but she looked oddly familiar. Megan seemed to have the same thought as I did.
That woman. I knew I'd seen her somewhere before, Then it hit me. She's Jennifer Campbell, the celebrity chef. She runs a bunch of cooking classes. She's super popular right now. You've heard of her, right?
Jennifer Campbell. I remembered seeing her in a magazine at the salon recently. She had this confident, glamorous aura.
I'm sorry for not telling you sooner, but I just couldn't bring myself to. She's done this before. A few years back, she dated an up-and-coming actor, then dumped him after about a year. Michael's gonna end up the same way.
I had no intention of blaming Megan. If our roles had been reversed, I probably wouldn't have said anything either. I just needed time to process everything. I never imagined that, after 13 years of supporting Michael, he'd betray me like this. Saying I wasn't hurt would be a lie, but I had Ashley. I couldn't afford to stay stuck in the past. Ashley was what kept me strong. I'm thinking about divorcing your dad. What do you think, Ashley? I tried to sound as cheerful as possible when I told Ashley after she got home from school. I watched her closely, trying not to miss even the slightest reaction. But Ashley gave me a 100% genuine smile.
That's amazing. I'm all for it. Congrats, Mom. You're finally free.
Her excitement caught me off guard. But if Ashley agreed, then I had no reason to hesitate. All that was left was to move forward with the divorce. The next day, I went to my parents' house and told them everything. Neither my mom nor dad objected to the divorce. I pulled out the divorce papers that Michael had left behind and signed them right there. Then, that very same day, I submitted them to the courthouse. There was no turning back now. Ashley and I would move forward together. Today was the start of our new, happy life. I bought 2 small cakes on my way home. That night, Ashley and I toasted with juice.
It's a celebration.
Seeing Ashley's bright, carefree smile made me happy. Michael was barely home to begin with. So, life after the divorce wasn't all that different. If anything, it was easier financially now that I wasn't supporting him. Even though our marriage ended because of Michael's cheating, I never asked for alimony or child support. I knew he didn't have the money. Even if I demanded it, he wouldn't pay. Rather than waste energy on a legal battle, it was easier to just assume I wouldn't get anything from him. As I cut Michael out of my life completely and focused on my peaceful days with Ashley, a year passed before I knew it. Ashley was now in 8th grade. She helped out a lot around the house, making things easier for me, especially with my busy schedule. Tonight, I had promised her I'd make her favorite food, hamburgers. After work, I finished grocery shopping and hurried home. If I started cooking now, dinner would be ready just in time for Ashley's return. I climbed the stairs to our apartment, arms full of groceries.
Hey, long time no see.
I almost dropped my bags. Michael, what are you doing here?
I broke up with my lover.
Michael said it like it was no big deal, completely unbothered by my shock.
She didn't want a guy who wasn't making money. I told her I was just about to make it big, but she didn't believe me. But you will, won't you? So yeah, we broke up, and I came back.
I couldn't find the words to respond. What the hell was he talking about? I just stared at him, unable to process the situation, while he smirked at me.
Why so quiet? Are you so happy you're speechless?
If I stayed silent, he'd just keep making assumptions. I couldn't let that happen. You came back? Are you seriously saying that? We're divorced, Michael. You were the one who wanted the divorce. We're not a family anymore. This isn't your home.
Don't be so cold. You stayed in this apartment, which means you were waiting for me, right? Just be honest with yourself. Anyway, make me something to eat. I'm starving.
This was the man who cheated on me, demanded a divorce, and said he'd never see us again. Now, a year later, he was standing here, expecting me to feed him. His audacity was beyond belief. It makes me doubt if we are even the same human species. Sorry, but I can't let you in. You need to leave.
Come on, this was my place too. Don't be so uptight.
At this rate, he was going to cause a scene. More than anything, I didn't want him to see Ashley. Maybe if I let him in, fed him, he'd leave before she got home. I was about to give in when Ashley came.
Mom? Are you okay?
Ashley had come home earlier than usual. She looked at me with concern, noticing that I was arguing with someone at the door.
Hey, Ashley, Daddy's back. Wow, you've grown so much in just a year.
For a brief moment, Ashley looked at Michael with surprise. But then, her expression hardened into pure hatred.
Who are you?
Huh?
I said, who on earth are you?
Even I, her mother, had never seen Ashley like this before. Michael seemed taken aback.
What do you mean? I'm your dad.
I don't have a dad.
Ashley stared at him, unblinking.
As far as I remember, I never had one. Right, Mom?
Ashley was right. Even before the divorce, Michael was never a father. He had never been a father from the moment she was born. And Ashley, more than anyone, had always known that. That's right, I answered, but my chest tightened. Ashley never said anything, but deep down, she was hurt. Hurt by the fact that Michael had never even tried to be a father.
Can the stranger leave now?
What the hell did you just say to your dad?
Are you stupid? I told you I don't have a dad. Now get lost. Get out of our lives.
Ashley stood firm. Her unwavering stance made it clear she would never accept Michael back. He must have realized he'd lost this fight. He had always been weak against strong women, even if that woman was his own daughter.
Don't think you're getting away with this.
As expected, he spat out a cheap, soap opera-worthy line, stomped out his cigarette, and stormed off. As soon as he was gone and we stepped back inside, Ashley broke down crying. She must have been holding in so much that I couldn't even begin to understand. As I stroked her head, I felt the dam of my own suppressed emotions finally break. I would never forgive Michael for barging into our peaceful life. As I watched Ashley shake while crying, I swore to myself I would get my revenge. I wasted no time. The next day, I started taking action. Michael had thrown the word lover around so often, I didn't even need proof. But just in case, I got those old photos from Megan and went straight to a lawyer. A few days later, on my way home from work, Michael called me. I knew this was going to be a heavy conversation, so I stepped onto a quiet street before answering. Hello.
What the hell is this?
Michael didn't even let me finish before he exploded. Can I help you with something? I had expected this call. I had expected him to be furious. So his shouting didn't faze me.
That damn lawyer of yours called me. Alimony? You've got to be kidding me.
I'm not joking.
A whole year's passed since we divorced. Now you're asking for alimony. Are you insane? $50,000? There's no way in I can pay that.
His voice was shaking with rage. I could practically picture him on the other end, face red and eyes bulging. The old me would have been terrified, but not anymore. Maybe you should take notes for your next marriage. You have 3 years to claim alimony after a divorce. And let me remind you that I supported our entire marriage. $50,000, including property division and child support, is a bargain. You should be thanking me.
I work too, damn it.
You did. But you spent every penny of your paycheck on yourself. Did you forget?
You don't have proof of that. I'll tell your lawyer this is all made up.
I had no patience for this nonsense. I pulled my bank statement from my bag and started reading. Rent, utilities, groceries, Ashley's school fees, phone bills. Every single payment came from my account. I have the records to prove it. Want to see them? Oh, and by the way, I also have pictures of you cheating. Michael had nothing to say. After a long silence, he finally muttered weakly,
I don't have that kind of money.
"That's not my problem." Michael's earlier energy was already gone. For 13 years, I had never stood up to him. But now, I was showing him just how strong I could be. And I had all the proof I needed. I bet he regretted underestimating me. You've got instruments and equipment, don't you? If you can't pay, sell them. Sell that precious upright bass of yours. Give up music, and you won't need a car either, right? For the first time, Michael faltered. He never showed a hint of hesitation or regret when he let go of his own daughter, and if anything, he was the one who walked away. But now, being told to let go of his instruments, he was shaken.
Please, don't take music away from me. I lost you. I lost my lover. Music is all I have left.
So now he had no pride left. He was resorting to begging. But he had made such a mess of things that I couldn't even feel an ounce of pity. You brought this on yourself. Just accept it.
If I could let go, I would have already. Come on, you loved me when I was playing music, didn't you?
I actually laughed. After everything you did, you still think I love you? That's adorable. Listen up, Michael. I will never forgive you. And I will make you pay. So get ready for it. Michael was still saying something, but I hung up. If he had just stayed gone, this wouldn't have happened. He was the one who swore he'd never see us again. Yet when his lover dumped him, he came crawling back. Not once did he ever think about how Ashley and I felt. He treated our hearts like toys. And now he was going to face the consequences. At night, when Ashley got home from volleyball practice, I told her what had happened that day. I filed for alimony. I've been putting up with everything until now, but I've decided to finally face it and fight back. This might make things tough for you too, Ashley. I'm sorry. Ashley wasn't a little girl anymore. I wanted to be honest with her about what was coming.
You're apologizing already? Mom, I'm your #1 supporter. So from now on, no more saying sorry to me about that man, okay?
Ashley's words had saved me so many times, given me strength to keep fighting. And now, she was still standing beside me, lifting me up. With Ashley by my side, I could take on the world.
You two worked hard today, huh, Mom?
Yeah, I did. And I'll have to keep going. Something about the way she said, You too caught my attention. But I just smiled and started making dinner. She must have been hungry. How was practice today? Ashley's volleyball team was one of the strongest around, and the training was intense.
I skipped today. Had something to do.
Ashley never skipped practice, no matter how sick she was. I was surprised. I wanted to ask more, but I knew she'd find it annoying if I pried too much, so I let it go. Then, the next day, I saw something shocking in the news. The headline read, "Popular celebrity chef Jennifer Campbell steals musician from his wife and child, only to dump him a year later." As I read the article, I learned that Jennifer had hosted a cooking class the day before, with media coverage present. And during that event, a young girl had suddenly shown up. I saw the accompanying photo and froze. Amidst the crowd of students and reporters, the girl facing off against Jennifer had her face blurred. But there was no doubt in my mind. It was Ashley. The article detailed their entire exchange.
You can't just dump my father and send him back to us. My mom and I were finally happy together. But because you left him, now he's trying to come home.
Who are you? What are you talking about?
I'm the biological daughter of that failed musician you dumped.
Surrounded by adults, with everyone watching, Ashley stood her ground against Jennifer without the slightest hesitation.
My father was never home when I was little. I'm guessing that's because he was with you the whole time.
Don't make assumptions.
But it didn't matter, because I had a kind mother and loving grandparents. I was never lonely. Even when my father told us he was leaving us forever to marry his lover, I didn't feel sad at all.
Let's move to another room. This is something we should discuss privately.
Maybe she was worried about her reputation because Jennifer tried to get Ashley to talk elsewhere. But Ashley refused.
I'm not here to blame you for taking my father. But you took him from my mom, then dump him when he wasn't useful anymore. How can someone that cruel make food that brings happiness? I came here today to ask your students that.
That has nothing to do with cooking.
My mom is kind, so the food she makes is kind too. But when she's sad, her cooking tastes sad.
As I read those words, tears welled up in my eyes. Ashley had always sensed my emotions while we ate together. She had laughed with me, cried with me. And now, she had put those feelings into words.
That's why I don't believe someone like you can cook food that makes people happy.
Ashley's voice had trembled, but her conviction had been unshakable.
Stop talking nonsense and get out of here. Your father is already dragging me down enough. I don't need you doing it too.
But the one who left wasn't Ashley. It was Jennifer's students. They quietly stood up and walked out.
Wait. Where are you all going? The interview isn't over yet.
Jennifer tried to stop them, but they just gave her cold, disapproving stares and left without a word. Most of her students were women who were engaged or newly married. Who would want to pay expensive fees to learn from a teacher who didn't even value family? It was no surprise they walked away. I finished reading the article and turned on the TV. The incident at the cooking class was all over the morning talk shows. Meanwhile, Ashley sat across from me, casually munching on toast. For a second, I almost convinced myself it had been someone else. But it wasn't. This was you, wasn't it, Ashley?
Yep. Wow, Mom, I'm impressed. Even with my face blurred, you still recognized your daughter.
She grinned, but I pressed on seriously. Don't joke around. Ashley, did you really barge into that cooking class?
Yes, I did.
She answered without hesitation.
I saw an ad saying they were recruiting new students because the class was being covered by the media. I thought, this is my chance. So I skipped practice and went.
I couldn't help but admire her. She was only 14, and yet she had the courage to stand up and take down her father's lover.
Mom got justice against Dad, and I got justice against her. Case closed.
Ashley's smile still had a trace of childish innocence. Because of the scandal, people quickly figured out who the failed musician in the article was. Michael's band started losing gigs, and in the end, he had to quit the group. With his music career over, he sold his upright bass, gave up his car, and used the money to start paying me. But it wasn't nearly enough. He had to work 2 jobs, construction during the day, security at night, just to keep up with the payments. As for Jennifer, after the news broke, most of her students left. She had once been a TV regular, but now she was nowhere to be seen. Her popularity plummeted overnight. Following Megan's advice, I sued Jennifer for damages as well. With her savings, the amount I demanded probably wasn't much of a loss. She paid right away. But no matter how much she paid, that scandal would follow her for the rest of her life. In a way, maybe she was just another victim of Michael. A year passed. I moved out of the apartment we had once shared with Michael. Now, Ashley and I lived with my parents. Ashley was in her final year of middle school.
So, Ashley, any dreams for the future?
Yeah, I want to be a lawyer. I want to help people like Mom.
That's an admirable goal. I'll do whatever I can to support you.
Dad smiled warmly. He had always been soft on Ashley. By tonight, I was sure there would be a pile of law books waiting for her.
Ashley, you'll make a great lawyer. You're smart, just like me.
You mean just like me?
Either way, if you don't hurry, you'll be late. Ashley, get moving.
Okay, I'm off.
The 3 of us saw her off as she ran to school. It was a simple, yet blissful morning.
I gave those to my niece.
The kindergarten goods I made for Julia. Apparently, they're in my niece's hands now. I could tell from Carter's expression that he thought I was surprised, but I wasn't surprised at all. If anything, I was thinking, I knew it. Because I knew everything. And this alone isn't enough to shock me. You're hiding much bigger secrets. I said to Carter, who was grinning. Thanks for everything so far. The movers are coming today. I will never forget the surprised look on Carter's face at that time. My name is Marissa Davis. I'm 29 years old. I live with my husband, Carter, and our daughter, Julia. Honestly, I wouldn't say I'm happy. Just having a family makes you happy. There are probably people who think that way. But I believe that happiness can change greatly depending on the living environment and who you're living with. That's because I've felt it firsthand. After Julia was born, Carter's attitude suddenly changed drastically. Our first meeting was at a work-related drinking party. Although we worked at different companies, my boss was close with an employee from Carter's company, and whenever there was a drinking party, they would often invite their close colleagues. One day, that colleague brought Carter along. That was when Carter and I first met. Everyone was lively after having some drinks, but neither Carter nor I could keep up with the atmosphere. In the midst of that, Carter started a conversation with me.
It's really lively, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. A typical conversation you'd hear anywhere. Carter might have just casually started the conversation, but I was happy to be able to talk with him. It was probably because I realized I wasn't the only one feeling left out. From there, we slowly started to have more conversations. At first, we talked about things like drinking parties and our work, but gradually, we started talking about more personal topics. By the time the drinking party ended, our relationship had progressed to the point where we exchanged contact information and were already talking about when we could meet again. After that, Carter and I started communicating after work and even started going out together. 2 months after we first met at the drinking party, we began dating. Although I had dated a few other guys before, I felt the most comfortable and secure when I was with Carter. Our relationship continued to be good, and after about 3 years of dating, we got married. I had heard that some men change their personalities suddenly after marriage, but Carter showed no such signs and remained kind and caring. He always thought about me and our family. I truly felt lucky to be able to marry someone like Carter. I wonder how he will interact with our child when we have one. He'll probably be just as kind to the child. I continued my life with Carter, imagining a future together. However, both that life and the future I had imagined were completely shattered. The turning point was the birth of Julia. Carter's attitude changed so drastically that it felt like everything we had was a lie.
Hey, stop with the kid stuff and bring me the drinks already.
Handle the drinks yourself. I have a lot to do and I'm busy.
I don't care about that. I'm tired from work. Ugh, I don't want to move.
Even while I was taking care of Julia, Carter paid no mind and kept demanding what he wanted.
I've been working for you. How about doing something for me? Let me relax at home, at least.
If you're going to say that, I'm working too, you know? I'm doing work, housework, taking care of Julia, and on top of that, I have to take care of you?
Take care of me? What? Are you treating me like a child? Don't mess with me.
Did he even realize what he was saying? I was stunned by Carter's words, but after taking care of Julia, I brought him the drinks. If I didn't, Carter would just keep complaining. I knew that if I didn't make him handle things himself, he'd just get more demanding. Still, I couldn't help but worry that his shouting might have a negative impact on Julia, so I kept fulfilling his demands. Of course, none of this was Julia's fault. This is just my guess, but Carter's true nature is probably this unruly side of him. Since we got married and had a child, I couldn't just get a divorce easily. I think he started showing his true colors, realizing that now. It felt like he thought he could get away with anything and still be forgiven. Carter had said that he wanted children, and he didn't dislike them. Even if he did dislike kids, he shouldn't have been so harsh with me. I regretted falling for Carter's scheme. Even after that, Carter continued to try to make me do everything his way.
Don't you get it? I'm not like some free time loser like you.
I've told you I'm busy too, right? How many times do I have to say it for you to understand? If you have time to sit around drinking, you could at least wash one plate.
The intensity of my work is different.
You say that, but your salary is barely different from mine. It's the truth, so I couldn't help it. Since Carter didn't seem to understand reality, I thought I should make it clear. Of course, I wouldn't say anything like this if Carter wasn't being so arrogant. Even though his salary is about the same as mine, his earnings are still earnings, and it's true that I'm grateful for them. But when he speaks to me like this, I can't help but snap back. In the end, Carter never changed his attitude or actions, and time passed by. In fact, as Julia grew, his attitude became even worse. When Julia started to understand words, Carter began to intentionally tell her all sorts of things about me, whether true or not.
Mom used to have a bad personality.
Hey, what are you saying?
It's true, so it's fine to say it.
That's not true at all. When I pointed it out, Carter sulked and quickly changed his attitude. Julia watched the whole thing with a puzzled look.
You're overreacting to little things. Even if I tell her a little lie, Julia won't remember it anyway.
If she won't remember it, then there's no need to say it. Especially if it's a lie. Don't you realize that even little lies are still lies? If someone spread lies about you, you'd stop them, right?
Of course I would. It's a lie. But this is a different situation. I'm only saying the truth.
Are you serious? I was at a loss, holding my head in frustration over Carter's contradictory statements. Where did the Carter I liked go? Carter, justifying himself with his contradictory arguments, acting like he was in the right. I was tired of dealing with him. But when I thought about Julia, I couldn't bring myself to say I wanted a divorce. Every time I thought about divorce, I regretted not being able to see Carter's true nature before we got married. Even after that, Carter continued to be sweet to Julia and harsh with me. Since Julia started to understand words, he still repeated unreasonable things in front of her, but he never used foul language. Perhaps this was Carter's way of trying to be considerate. Even so, I can't help but think that his behavior of being so rude to others is questionable. And when he's really in a bad mood, he doesn't care where he is and will just curse. I have no idea what he really wants.
Julia is so cute. If her mother weren't you, she'd be perfect.
Well, you're the one who chose that mother, aren't you?
You always have to have the last word. Don't you ever just listen to what someone else is saying?
I'd return that exact same statement to you. I had gotten used to arguing with Carter by now. How many times had he told me that Julia would have been perfect if her mother weren't me? At first, those words shocked me. But Carter repeats the same words whenever he gets attached to something, so once I started thinking there was no need to take him seriously, I found it easier to calm down and not blame myself. Carter continued to repeat his selfish behavior. After work, Carter would drink while watching TV at home and boss me around. I would come home from work, with no time to rest, and had to finish the morning's housework as well. That alone was exhausting, but I also had to deal with Carter, which added more strain. On top of that, as Julia got older, I had less time to spend on taking care of her, but she still needed attention. It was completely overwhelming. The one saving grace was that Julia preferred staying inside, drawing pictures or watching cartoons, rather than playing outside. While I didn't mind her playing outside, I thought as long as Julia was enjoying herself, that's what mattered. However, Carter seemed to lose interest in both me and Julia, as his return time from work became later, and on his days off, he would go out. This was around the time Julia turned 2.
Hey, I've got overtime today, and we'll be home late. Tomorrow I have to go in for weekend work too.
Carter proudly talked about how busy he was and how much his company trusted him, saying it all with a sense of triumph.
I'm not like you.
In reality, Carter wasn't doing any overtime or weekend work. The pay stubs made it clear. I considered the possibility that he might be having an affair, but there was no sign of that whatsoever. Carter couldn't lie. If he were cheating, something would have slipped by now. Julia didn't seem to mind as much as I expected when Carter wasn't home. I thought it might be better to let him be, spending his time outside however he pleased, rather than arguing with him inside the house. How many times had I thought I should have been more responsible? But it was too late. I had to do what I could do now. That was what I resolved in my heart. However, that life wouldn't last long. It all changed when Carter's sister, Meredith, came to our house. One day, I received a message from Meredith saying that she wanted to visit, bringing her child with her. My relationship with Meredith was neither good nor bad, just normal. I didn't think there was any reason to refuse, so I accepted her request. But I couldn't help but wonder what had happened. She had never asked to come over before. I waited nervously for the day Meredith would come to our house. A few days later, Meredith arrived with her child.
Long time no see. Sorry for the sudden request to come over.
No, it's fine. Since we had met at a family gathering, Julia and Meredith's child, Kate, were getting along fairly well. They seemed to be enjoying themselves, drawing pictures and playing with building blocks together. We also had the chance to catch up after a long time, so we chatted about our lives and some small talk. However, since we didn't get to the main topic, I decided to bring it up. By the way, what was it that you needed today?
Oh, right. I got so caught up in talking.
Meredith took a sip of the tea in front of her, paused, and then made a request.
Julia and Kate are both about to start kindergarten, right?
Actually, Julia and Kate were the same age, and by chance, they were going to the same kindergarten. I had only recently found out that they would be attending the same one. Yes, that's right.
Well, before they start, we need to prepare things like drawstring bags, right? I've heard you're good at crafting, Marissa. Would you be able to make one for Kate as well?
It's true that I enjoy crafting. I wasn't sure who told Meredith that, or if it could even be called a special skill, but if it had reached Meredith, maybe I was good at it. However, to be honest, it was a tough request. I was already overwhelmed with my own life. Even though Carter spent less time at home, when he was there, he mostly just cursed at me. It was infuriating that, as always, he still tried to act like a normal father in front of Julia. Dealing with him consumed so much energy, and I continued to be troubled. I'm sorry. I'm too overwhelmed to take on that request right now. Oh, but the craft store I often go to can make it for you. It'll cost more than making it yourself, but the quality is really good. After turning down Meredith's request, I suggested the craft store as an alternative. However, as soon as Meredith heard my response, her expression and attitude completely changed.
You're turning down my request.
No,
I was hoping to save some money by asking you. If that wasn't the case, I wouldn't have come all the way here to ask you.
Her sudden shift caught me off guard, and I couldn't find the words to respond. She had mentioned saving money, so was she planning to not even pay for the materials? But Meredith, completely ignoring my reaction, kept piling on the words.
Unbelievable. I put my pride aside to ask you, and you can't even consider my feelings.
Put your pride aside. But in this situation, I'm not sure if I can make it the way you want. Also, I'm an amateur, so I think it would be better to ask a professional.
I don't want to spend a lot of money. That's why I asked you.
But they're about to start kindergarten, right? It's okay to spend some money to get things ready, especially for things they'll use there, right? I spoke in a stronger tone than I intended because of Meredith's selfishness. That only made Meredith even more upset.
Fine. I don't care anymore. I'm leaving.
Wait. And with that, Meredith left, taking Kate with her.
What's going on?
It's nothing. I tried to brush it off, not wanting to worry Julia. I hoped that Meredith would come to understand, but my wish was not granted.
I heard from Meredith. Why did you turn down her request? That's unbelievable.
There were various reasons. It seemed that Meredith had told Carter what had happened. As soon as he got home from work, Carter confronted me.
How can someone like you, with all your free time, not even listen to Meredith's request? What's wrong with you?
I don't have free time. I've got work, housework, and I have to deal with you. I'm completely out of energy.
What do you mean, deal with me?
I was exhausted. Meredith probably thought I was the enemy. And she immediately turned around and told Carter about our conversation. It wouldn't be long before both of them would be scheming against me. I had married the most impossible man. As I listened to Carter's shouting, my mind began to race. From that day on, Carter's behavior toward me became even more harsh. How could he be so confident in elevating himself and putting me down with his words? Why was he putting so much energy into insulting me? I felt like I had reached my breaking point. I finally started seriously thinking about divorce. I had originally wanted to wait until Julia was an adult, but now I knew I couldn't. But how should I go about proceeding with the divorce? Should I start gathering evidence to try to make the divorce his fault? As I pondered these questions, an unexpected opportunity came my way. It was the Sunday just before Julia was about to start kindergarten. I was pulling out the kindergarten supplies I made for Julia to check if I had forgotten anything. But when I looked in the spot where I had originally placed them, they were gone. I searched through other places where it might have been, but it was still nowhere to be found. Hey, do you know where Julia's kindergarten supplies are? I had put them away. I asked Carter, who was drinking in the living room. Without hesitation, Carter laughed and said,
I gave them to my niece.
It seemed that Julia's kindergarten supplies were now in Kate's hands. Carter looked like he wanted me to be surprised, but I wasn't surprised at all. Because I already knew everything. And this wasn't enough to shock me. There was a much bigger secret being hidden. With a grin on my face, I said to the smirking Carter, Thanks for everything so far. The movers are coming today.
Moving?
Carter's expression changed instantly, his face filled with surprise. Yes. Moving. I'm going back to my parents' house with Julia.
What? No, wait. This is too sudden.
Well, it may seem sudden, but I can't tolerate your attitude anymore.
Attitude?
Carter's expression turned into one of displeasure, as if he didn't understand what I meant. But no matter how Carter reacted, my decision wouldn't change. It was all too late.
Hey, what's wrong with me? What do you mean attitude? And if my attitude is the problem, why are you moving over the kindergarten supplies? And the movers, did you plan all this?
Carter fired questions at me in quick succession. I knew he wouldn't accept it, but I calmly addressed each of his questions one by one. First, about the attitude, I've told you many times before. You're the one who hasn't tried to understand.
I don't get it.
And about the kindergarten supplies. I actually knew that you gave them to your niece. I also know you gave Meredith money, claiming it was for the kindergarten expenses. The truth was, I knew that Carter had given money along with the kindergarten supplies, saying it was for their enrollment fees. That's why I deliberately asked him. I wanted to confirm if he knew where the supplies were. In reality, Carter looked pretty flustered. But he quickly tried to argue.
Huh? Why would you? Wait, no, that's not.
The fact that you're so flustered means I'm right, doesn't it? Well, no matter what excuse you give, I already know you gave the supplies and the money to Meredith, and I have the proof. No matter how you try to justify it, all you'll do is make things worse for yourself.
No, how do you know? Where's the proof?
At this point, it was as good as an admission. I overheard you talking to Meredith on the phone. Were the kindergarten supplies you gave her well received? How about the money? Is it useful? I know it was wrong to eavesdrop, but honestly, it doesn't feel good to have things done behind my back, so I recorded it.
Recording? What do you mean?
Yes. I figured you would deny everything unless I had proof. Honestly, I was already fed up with your attitude and was thinking about divorce, so it worked out perfectly. At the mention of divorce, Carter's face instantly drained of color.
Divorce? I only gave her the kindergarten supplies.
It's not just that, is it? How many times do I have to say it? I'm done. I'm tired of talking, so don't come near me.
Hey.
I could hear Carter's voice behind me as I walked away, heading to my room. I had already informed Julia that we would be going back to my parents' house. And she had agreed to it.
I will be fine with you,
she said quietly. As I listened to Julia's words, it was clear she didn't like Carter. At this point, it seemed like she might even hate him. Hearing Julia, I felt conflicted. Part of me was relieved that I hadn't forced her to be separated from Carter, but at the same time, I wished I could have done something to help her. I checked the time. The movers would be here soon. I packed up mine and Julia's things, waiting for the moment to arrive. A few minutes later, the movers arrived right on schedule. I quickly directed them to the hidden furniture that I had arranged so that Carter wouldn't notice and had it taken to my parents' house. Since my father had come to pick us up, Julia and I got into his car and headed to my parents' house. Seeing my father's face, waiting for us in the car, I felt a rush of relief.
Hey. This has to be some kind of mistake, right? You didn't have to go this far.
Even with the movers there, Carter continued to shout and cause a scene. But I ignored him and continued with the preparations in a calm, steady manner. The movers, probably used to situations like this, worked quickly and efficiently. However, even though I had made the decision to divorce, nothing had truly been resolved. To end things with Carter and Meredith as soon as possible, I couldn't afford to rest and immediately began taking action. 1 week later, I was at my in-laws' house. It was to settle things with Carter and Meredith. Without their knowledge, I had already explained everything to my in-laws over the phone about the situation and my intention to divorce. At the same time, I sent them the recorded phone conversation as proof so they could hear for themselves. After hearing the full story, my in-laws seemed shocked by Carter and Meredith's actions and decided to support me. Julia was being taken care of at my parents' house along with Kate. The sight of them laughing innocently as they entered my parents' house felt a little bittersweet. It seemed that Meredith's husband had no idea about the kindergarten supplies or the money situation. In fact, he didn't even know how serious things had become until the day of the discussion. He called in a panic, apologizing. He asked to be included in the discussion, but I refused. I only wanted to talk with Carter and Meredith. I knew that if it was just the three of us, I would definitely lose, so I involved my in-laws. But I thought that adding more people would only complicate things further. At first, Meredith's husband didn't back down, but in the end, he agreed and apologized again.
But why did you have to involve my parents in this discussion? It didn't have to be this big of a deal. This is something that should be between me, Meredith, and you, right?
Exactly. I don't get why Mom and Dad are on your side. What did you tell them?
Carter and Meredith both vented their frustrations, each expressing their thoughts in their own way. They were confronting me even in front of their own parents. If it had just been the three of us, I'm sure the situation would have been even more heated. I thought that without a third party, you two would pressure me into agreeing. That's why I had them help.
We're on Marissa's side because we don't think she's lying. And besides, we actually listened to the recording of your call.
You recorded it? That's the lowest.
It was tempting to point out who the real lowest one was. But I held myself back, knowing it would just take the conversation further off track.
Anyway, I've told you countless times. What's wrong with giving the kindergarten supplies to my niece?
If you just gave her the supplies, it wouldn't have become such a big issue. I'm upset that you gave away the items I made for Julia without asking. At least a word of permission would have been nice. Though, I still wouldn't have allowed it.
You.
But what really blew this all up is that Carter gave Meredith money without asking. It came from the savings set aside for Julia, right? I'm sure you wanted to spoil your niece, but what does it mean to put Julia second like that? You said Julia was so cute, but now you're not even thinking about her future. Carter had mentioned in his phone call with Meredith that Julia still had money saved up, implying that it was okay to take from it. If he hadn't touched Julia's savings, those words would never have come up.
That's...
The fact that you don't immediately deny it is proof that you're not thinking about Julia. If you really cared about her, you wouldn't even touch her savings. Seeing an opening, I continued to press Carter with statement after statement, pushing him further into a corner. But then Meredith intervened.
If you had just made the kindergarten supplies quietly, none of this would have happened. You understand that.
Are you trying to shift the blame?
Shift the blame? The truth is, you're the one in the wrong, aren't you?
Do you really think that? Meredith's pride was evident as she insisted that she wasn't at fault. It seemed she wanted to justify her actions by claiming she had no other choice since I had refused her request.
Of course I did. Why wouldn't I?
Have you ever thought about Kate in all this?
Of course I have.
Meredith's gaze didn't waver at all. She truly believed what she was saying. But just because you're thinking about Kate doesn't mean it's okay to steal someone else's things. You didn't get my permission, so it's the same as stealing.
It's not a big deal.
So, you think it's fine to let your child use stolen things? Those kindergarten supplies have Julia's name on them. What if Kate gets labeled as a thief? It's not you who will suffer from that, is it? Maybe she had already checked everything and erased the names. But what if she missed something? What if she didn't even realize the name was on the supplies? It frustrated me that, while claiming to do it for her child, she didn't see that all her actions were just for her own convenience. Unable to respond to my words, Meredith glared at me and bit her lip. But I continued without paying her any mind. That's why I'm asking for the kindergarten supplies back. And of course, the money too.
But I've already received them.
Receiving them doesn't matter. I don't want you to have anything I made for Julia. I need that money back, or there's no way to settle this. Please, just try to put yourself in my shoes for a moment. Can you honestly say, if things were reversed, that you would accept someone saying, I took your things and your money without your knowledge, but since I already got them, I don't have to return them? I couldn't help but heat up, pushing even harder. And then, my mother-in-law stepped in to support me.
Exactly. You won't return the things, and you won't give the money back either. You've always had a tendency to be selfish, but I never imagined it would go this far.
My mother-in-law glared at Meredith sharply and said that. She directed that stern gaze at Carter as well.
You too. You may not have been as outspoken about your selfishness, But this time, it's too much. You need to realize that what you've done is theft, even within the family.
That's an exaggeration.
Exactly. It's an exaggeration. And honestly,
Hey,
Carter and Meredith tried to continue talking. It was my father-in-law who put a stop to it.
enough of this. No matter how you try to justify it, what Carter did is theft. And Meredith, you took it knowing the situation and still refused to return it. What does that mean? I can't believe you don't think your actions are wrong. It's absolutely embarrassing.
At my father-in-law's words, both Carter and Meredith fell silent. They were speechless, unable to argue. At that point, all that was left was for Meredith to return the kindergarten supplies and the money, and for the divorce with Carter to be finalized. Or so I thought, but it wasn't going to be that simple.
But doesn't this make the divorce seem strange? Why over kindergarten supplies and money?
To me, it feels like there's a thief in the house. And even before this incident, I had already been thinking about divorce. Your attitude is terrible, and we can't communicate. After deciding on the divorce, I even started keeping a journal. I wrote down every insult you threw at me and every bad attitude you showed. I didn't suddenly decide on divorce, and I kept giving you chances. But you never noticed any of it. As I continued speaking calmly, I could see Carter's face turning pale. But, on the other hand, Meredith's face grew red.
divorce her already. You've got the divorce papers with you, right? Come on, hurry up and get them out. There's someone better for you than her, Carter.
But
Even though Carter had been insulting me so much, he suddenly started to panic when it came to the divorce. Was it because he would be at fault, or was there something else going on? Why are you resisting now? Don't you hate me? Don't you realize you're contradicting what you've been saying and doing?
because of Julia.
Julia? What about her?
I feel sorry for her.
So that's the reason. It seemed Carter still thought he was needed by Julia. I decided to enlighten him with the truth. If you're worried about Julia, she'll be fine.
What?
When I told her I was going to my parents' house, she said all she needed was me. Carter's face turned completely pale. You've been speaking badly about me to Julia, trying to look good in front of her, but she's never called you Dad. She always referred to you as that person. She told me that she's scared of you because you're always angry at me. It seemed that Julia had been holding back all this time just because Carter was at home. After we moved to my parents' house, she opened up about how scared she was of him. I felt so guilty and apologized to Julia over and over. Julia is really scared of you. You may have tried hard to act like a father, but
if the parents are separated,
I know you want to say you feel sorry for her, but if you're the kind of father she has, it would be better if you weren't around. If you really care about Julia, then divorce me. After all the earlier anger, Carter was now speechless, staring at me. He probably couldn't believe it, but it was the truth. As Meredith said, I have the divorce papers with me. Once you sign them, I'll file them. And later, I'll have a lawyer handle the financial claims.
financial claims.
Meredith and Carter, I expect everything you've taken from me to be returned.
Divorce papers. Just sign them.
Meredith didn't reject or agree, she just kept repeating that. However, it seemed she couldn't defy my father-in-law.
You better return everything.
Upon hearing that, Meredith reluctantly nodded. Carter signed the divorce papers with trembling hands and slowly pushed them back to me. I took them, put them in my bag, and left it at that. On the way home from my in-laws, I immediately went to the city office and submitted the divorce papers. With that, I was officially divorced from Carter. After the discussion, I received repeated apologies from my in-laws. Carter and Meredith stood behind them, both with awkward expressions on their faces. A few days later, through my lawyer, I filed for compensation for the emotional distress I suffered, as well as for Julia's child support. Naturally, I retained full custody of Julia. I was also able to claim the money Carter had given to Meredith as part of the financial settlement. Reluctantly, Carter agreed to all of the payments. For now, the alimony and child support are being deposited, which brings me some peace of mind. Although he's still working, his expenses have increased significantly since the divorce, making life quite difficult. He's had to move to a cheaper place that is just barely livable. I also heard that, due to the continued financial strain, he started a part-time job. My thoughts on it were simple. I felt sorry for him, that's all. No matter how hard things get for Carter, I won't be the one to help. I hoped that Meredith would fully realize the consequences of her actions and reflect on them seriously. The kindergarten supplies were returned to me through Carter by Meredith. Since I had already claimed the money from Carter, it didn't matter whether Meredith returned it to him or not. After the discussion, I quickly contacted the other parents I met during the kindergarten tour. I made sure to warn them to be cautious of Meredith. The word spread through the group, and at the entrance ceremony, when Meredith tried to approach other parents with children in the same class, no one engaged with her.
Did you do something?
Naturally, the blame would fall on me if things escalated. Meredith spotted me and approached. But it was her husband who stopped her. He immediately pulled Meredith away from me, apologized profusely, and led her off somewhere. It seemed that, after that, she probably received a thorough scolding from her husband. I haven't seen her around, nor have I received any contact from her. It's still early days for kindergarten. I wonder how she'll show up at future events. I do hope she realizes that she's been excluded and changes her behavior. I was worried that my actions might cause trouble for Kate, but since Julia reported to me that she had played with her, I don't think any issues have arisen. Currently, Julia and I are living at my parents' house. My parents understand the situation and have welcomed us, for which I am deeply grateful. Commuting from their house to my workplace is manageable, so I'm still working. Julia's attendance at kindergarten hasn't been inconvenient either, and I thought about taking it easy for a while. Since moving in with my parents, I feel like Julia has become more talkative. It seems she was probably too scared of Carter to speak freely before. After hearing her true feelings, I regretted not acting sooner. What I can do for Julia now is to make her happy. She must have endured so much until now. I want to give her a life where she can feel happy. I wonder how she will build relationships at kindergarten as she grows. What will Julia look like when she's older? I just hope she keeps smiling forever. As I look at Julia's smile, I think about these things.